The rebirth of the urban mad immortal. In the classroom, a teacher was explaining poetry, while the students below were taking notes. Among the 30-odd students in the class, a young boy sitting at the back trembled slightly, slowly lifting his head. His messy bangs covered part of his face, and his delicate features were filled with confusion. He had woken up from a deep sleep, the sounds of familiar yet strange words lingering in his ears. "You're back." After a long pause, a soft sigh echoed in his heart, and Qin Xuan confirmed one fact. He gazed at his somewhat youthful hands, momentarily lost in thought. His eyes were as calm as an ancient well, seemingly holding an endless amount of history. Even the collapse of heaven and earth could not cause a single change in them. But no one noticed this. Only Qin Xuan stared silently at the teacher in the classroom, without uttering a word. Familiar yet strange memories stirred in the corners of his mind, causing a ripple in his usually unperturbed state of mind. The Green Emperor, originally named Qin Xuan, later changed his name to Qin Xuan after entering the cultivation world. He was the ruler of a region in the immortal realm, feared by all races. In 1,000 years, he achieved the title of emperor, with unparalleled talent, sweeping through his peers. After 1,000 years of tribulations, he ascended to immortality, becoming their number one of the 10,000 years in the cultivation world. He then entered the immortal realm, where in a mere 10,000 years, he suppressed countless geniuses, finally inheriting the Green Emperor's legacy in the Immortal Emperor Hall. He became revered as the Green Emperor, ruling over all, immortal and eternal, becoming the emperor of the human race. Now, he had returned to his youth, as time reshaped itself, and once again became an ordinary senior student in high school on Earth. The burial of Immortal's tribulation, becoming a god was hard. In the end, I still failed, Qin Xuan sighed quietly in his heart. Reflecting on his past, he couldn't help but feel regret. Had I not lost my emperor's resolve in the final moment, how could the burial of Immortal's tribulation have stopped me? Breaking through the immortal god passage of millions of years, if only. During the final tribulation of becoming a god, he had thought his emperor's resolve was unshakable. But a moment of carelessness created a fatal flaw. This allowed the tribulation to invade, going through the 3,000 illusory worlds. In the end, his emperor's resolve collapsed. If he hadn't sacrificed all his cultivation and millions of years of experience in a last-ditch effort, throwing himself into the river of time, he would have likely perished in the burial of Immortal's tribulation. Since he began his cultivation, Qin Xuan had never been weak, never had any regrets. His Tao heart had always been solid from the start, and no flaw could exist. After entering the immortal realm, his heart and emperor's resolve were as solid as an immortal mountain. He never expected the flaw that led to his downfall to be in his Tao heart, a flaw from his mortal years. Although that time was short compared to his million-year lifespan, it left the deepest regret, etched into his heart and unable to be erased by millennia. Now, reborn into his youth, his body felt hollow. The immortal power that could once shatter mountains and rivers, bring down stars and moons, was gone. The divine weapons, imperial artifacts, and even his divine powers and manifestations had all vanished. Yet, he still smiled faintly. It's good to be back. In the past, too much had happened, even making him change his name because he felt unworthy of the name Qin Xuan, so he took the name Chen Changqing. But now, as he returned to his youth, he would no longer let regrets happen again. Outside the window, the clouds dispersed, and a beam of warm sunlight shone through the clear window, casting a golden glow on Qin Xuan's face. After class, Qin Xuan was flipping through books when he heard a light call from the door. "Qin Xuan." The melodious voice broke his thoughts. He looked up and saw a beautiful girl standing at the door. She was wearing a pink short-sleeved top and a white skirt that reached her knees. Her long hair hung over her shoulders, her fair skin glowing, and her sweet smile made everyone around her take notice, unable to look away. It was clear that with her looks, years from now, she would be the object of admiration for countless young men. "Mouchoir." Qin Xuan's eyes were as calm as ever as he recognized the girl. She was one of the school belles, beautiful, from a good family, and an excellent student. Later, she was accepted into a prestigious university with top grades. She had been the goddess he had dreamed of in his past life, whom he had pursued for 2 whole years. Now, Mouchoir was his girlfriend. To outsiders, it might seem like Qin Xuan's sincerity had won her over. But he knew the truth. She only saw him as a toy for entertainment, even humiliating him publicly at a birthday party, causing him to lose focus, leading to a poor exam score and disappointment from his parents. Qin Xuan stood up and walked to the door amidst the envious gazes of everyone, calmly saying, "What's the matter?" Mu Shuai was stunned. She had expected Qin Xuan to be ecstatic, but instead, he responded so indifferently. This made her a little displeased, but she didn't pay much attention and smiled. "The day after tomorrow at 8 p.m. is my birthday party. I hope you can come." Qin Xuan didn't expose her mask, simply replying, "Got it." Mu Shuai furrowed her brows and stared at Qin Xuan's delicate face, trying to figure out what game he was playing. Is he trying to play hard to get? Mu Shuai was a bit disappointed. She sneered inwardly. Perhaps for Qin Xuan, even the thought of playing hard to get would be an improvement. "Then I'll leave." Mu Shuai waved with a smile and walked to the side of the hallway, where another girl stood with a smug expression, clearly dissatisfied. "Shuai, this guy is acting weird. Honestly, how did you choose him as your boyfriend?" The girl next to Mu Shuai sneered. "I think Wang Jiahao is much better than him." Wang Jiahao was also a transfer student from Mingde High School, and his parents ran a sizable company in the city. He was an only child, tall and handsome, admired by many girls. "Isn't he perfect?" Mu Shuai chuckled, covering her mouth. "If it weren't for losing a bet with Xiao Wu, would I have a boyfriend? You know how strict my parents are. You think I'm like you, changing boyfriends like changing clothes? TCH. A poor loser." "He's just lucky," Zhao Xiaoyu sneered as she glanced at Qin Xuan, feeling that Mu Shuai could do much better. Though Qin Xuan didn't hear their words, he noticed the disdain on Zhao Xiaoyu's face. He didn't care at all. After all, many stunning women had tried to get close to him in the past, even the top beauties in the cultivation world, and the female emperor of the Immortal realm, whom he had once suppressed. Even the maids in the Immortal Emperor's palace were leagues above Mu Shuai. To him, Mu Shuai's looks were possible, but not even worth a glance. Chapter 2, The Eternal Green Art. It was Friday afternoon, and school was out. Qin Xuan walked through the campus, feeling the familiar yet distant air of the place, his heart heavy with a touch of nostalgia. In his previous life, he had returned to Earth, but during this era, the spiritual energy on Earth was sparse. Cultivation was nearly impossible unless one could find a blessed land. With such weak spiritual energy, practicing cultivation was incredibly difficult, and there were almost no cultivators left. Sensing the faint spiritual energy in the air, Qin Xuan spent his free time searching for a place. After half a day, he stopped at the edge of a lake. The water shimmered under the light, reflecting the blue sky and green mountains. The scene was as beautiful as a 10-mile-long painting, breathtaking in its tranquility. Mingxin Lake, a major environmental protection area in Jingshui City, was one of the few quiet places left in the city. Moreover, the nearby Yuming Mountain was home to the city's premier residential area, where villas easily cost millions. The residents were mostly wealthy or influential, and ordinary citizens rarely visited. Those who appeared were usually people of high status. Qin Xuan was satisfied. The land here still held some intact spiritual veins. Although the spiritual energy was faint, it was enough to meet the requirements for foundation building. He looked around, found a secluded spot, and sat cross-legged, with his palms facing upwards in a meditative posture. In his past life, as the Green Emperor, the ruler of a domain in the Immortal realm, Qin Xuan had dominated the heavens, unmatched by any other. But when it came to cultivation methods, his foundation building technique was ordinary. Even many sects with moderate strength would look down on it. After entering the Immortal realm, he received the Green Emperor's inheritance, which allowed him to perfect his foundation and achieve greatness. Now, however, things were different. With the inheritance of the Green Emperor, which even Immortal Emperors envied, Qin Xuan had no need for the common foundation building techniques. The Eternal Green Art. It forged an indestructible body and an immortal form. Although he had lost his spiritual power, magical treasures, and divine abilities, as long as he practiced the Eternal Green Art, his foundation would remain unshaken. Facing the lake, Qin Xuan's mind became like still water, calm and unmoving. Gradually, his body seemed to merge with the surrounding world. Streams of invisible spiritual energy began to gather around him and entered his body. They flowed in accordance with the Eternal Green Art's path, circulating through his meridians and gathering in his dantian. If one observed carefully, they could see an invisible aura surrounding him. The ripples in the lake seemed to be drawn toward him, and his breath harmonized with the flow of heaven and earth, creating a mysterious rhythm. The cultivation process in the immortal world was divided into 8 major realms: Qi refining, golden core, divine transformation, nascent soul, void return, unity with Tao, great ascension, and tribulation passing. The foundation building stage was the first realm, Qi refining, where one absorbed the spiritual energy of the world to condense their spiritual sea. At this point, they were already different from ordinary humans, with a lifespan extended by 300 years, and they could perform magic. The eternal green art also cultivated both the body and the spirit. After foundation building, it could refine both the spirit and the body, making the practitioner stronger than even ordinary demons. There weren't many people around Mingxian Lake, and the area where Qin Xuan was sitting was secluded. Occasionally, someone might pass by, but they usually ignored him, thinking him some eccentric. As time passed, the sky darkened, and the moon appeared, casting a faint light over the landscape. Suddenly, Qin Xuan's body shook slightly. In the dim light of night, 2 streams of white air shot out from his nostrils, carrying a sharp aura that seemed to tear through the air with a faint sound. His eyes suddenly opened, and a flash of spiritual light appeared deep within them. There was a domineering will in his gaze. After a few breaths, he calmed down again. Foundation established. Qin Xuan looked up at the sky, revealing a faint smile. His spiritual sea in his dantian was still less than a foot in size, quite weak, but he was content. Establishing a foundation meant he had officially entered the world of cultivators, no longer a mere mortal. This was 10 years earlier than in his previous life. In my previous life, my heart had flaws. During the Great Tribulation, my immortal heart and imperial will were breached by the burial of immortals, causing severe damage to my body. But this life, I will perfect everything, leaving no regrets. His gaze was sharp like a sword, unwavering and firm. Standing at the edge of Mingxian Lake, bathed in the moonlight, he radiated a divine aura, like a god. Returning so late. Huiyun must be worrying about me. Qin Xuan lightly shook his head. He studied in Jingshui City, and his parents were not around. His daily care was left to a family friend of his mother, Huiyun. He recalled vaguely that Huiyun was 6 years older than him and was 24 this year. Due to their similar age, Qin Xuan had always called her by her name, rather than aunt, as tradition would dictate. Huiyun had been very kind to Qin Xuan, even better than to her own sister. Qin Xuan had always been grateful to her. Unfortunately, after going to university, he had never had the chance to return to Jingshui City until he faced a great tragedy and saw Huiyun once more at his parents' funeral. Thinking of Huiyun, Qin Xuan sighed softly and walked toward the edge of Mingxian Lake. I wonder if I can catch a cab at this hour. Just then, he stopped in his tracks as 2 figures approached. One was an elderly man with white hair, but despite his age, there was an imposing aura about him, a presence formed from years of high status. The other person was much younger, probably in his 20s, and appeared to be assisting the elderly man, showing great respect. It was unusual to see people at Mingxian Lake at this hour. Qin Xuan glanced at the elderly man again. From the 2 looks he gave, Qin Xuan sensed something unusual about the man. Although he appeared healthy, his steps were a bit unsteady, and his eyes were dim. If Qin Xuan's senses were correct, the elderly man was also a cultivator, with a faint aura of spiritual energy within him. However, he seemed to have suffered some hidden injuries, which explained his unusual symptoms. Are there cultivators on Earth? From his appearance, he seems to be a martial artist, but his strength is too weak. Qin Xuan thought to himself, a trace of curiosity lighting up in his eyes. He needed someone to ask for directions. In his previous life, he was a mere mortal and had no knowledge of cultivators. By the time he returned to Earth after 100 years, the world had changed, and cultivators below the divine transformation realm no longer caught his attention. Now, having just established his foundation, he wanted to learn more about cultivators in this era. The elderly man and the young one walked toward Mingxian Lake. When they saw Qin Xuan, both of them were surprised. Young people who still have the leisure to walk by Mingxian Lake at this hour are rare. The elderly man smiled and said, his gaze curious. He sensed that Qin Xuan was extraordinary, even causing the stillness of his own heart to stir slightly, as if recalling the turbulent years when he had been to battlefields and survived gunfire. Dangerous. The elderly man's eyes narrowed. He recognized that feeling, though he hadn't experienced it in decades. The young man beside him noticed Qin Xuan's intense gaze at the elderly man and grew cautious. He's probably just a heartbroken young man. Mo Lao, be careful not to catch a cold so late. The elderly man, Mo Lao, was a bit uncertain as he looked at Qin Xuan. He raised his hand slightly and said, I may be old, but I'm not fragile enough to catch a cold from the evening breeze. I haven't been back to Qin Xuan City in 10 years. The only thing that hasn't changed is Mingxian Lake. At that moment, Qin Xuan took a step forward and walked toward them. Chapter 3, Do not underestimate the water in the pond. The young man's expression changed drastically. His hand moved quickly toward his waist, but he was stopped by a single look from the elder. Though he suspected the boy was not ordinary, he didn't sense any malice from him. Furthermore, the elder was confident that no one could harm him. You're injured? The first sentence spoken by Qin Xuan left both of them stunned, especially the young man, whose expression grew darker. Even though the elder stopped him, the young man still suppressed his anger and said, Watch your words. Do you not know what respecting the elderly and loving the young means? Respect the elderly and love the young? Qin Xuan couldn't help but smile at the young man, but he didn't respond. In the Immortal realm, speaking of respect for the elderly in front of the Qing Emperor? Those ancient beings who had cultivated for hundreds of thousands of years wouldn't dare speak of such things in his presence. How do you know? The elder was instead taken aback and looked at Qin Xuan with surprise. He was well aware of his own injuries, and even after visiting several major hospitals, no one could diagnose him. It was only an old friend who used ancient medicine techniques to identify it. Yet, this young man could tell with a single glance. The elder's memory was sharp. He knew this boy was someone he had never met before. I can tell. Qin Xuan smiled lightly and spoke casually, I can help you heal your injuries. With that, Qin Xuan extended his hand toward the elder, intending to examine him. Preposterous. The young man immediately became agitated. The elder's status was far too important to allow any disturbances. Moreover, the boy was extremely suspicious, so the young man stepped forward to stop him. Get back. Qin Xuan's eyes narrowed slightly, and he coldly glanced at the young man, his internal power subtly vibrating. In an instant, the young man felt as though his hand had struck iron, and an overwhelmingly powerful force pushed him back several steps, as though the years of military training he had undergone had been nullified. Xiao Yi? The elder's eyes sharpened, and he stopped the young man. Xiao Yi's face turned pale with pain, his hand trembling from the agony. Only the elder understood that this boy was not an ordinary person and that Xiao Yi's abilities were nowhere near a match for him. Could this child be a martial artist? The elder was shocked. Looking at Qin Xuan's age barely 17, he appeared youthful and tender, yet a single tremor from him had sent Xiao Yi flying back. Could this child already be cultivating inner energy? The elder's thoughts raced. If he had reached such a level at such a young age, he could very well be a genius from a prominent family in the city. Qin Xuan continued to stretch his hand toward the elder's arm, gently lifting it and placing it on his pulse. His actions were filled with unquestionable dominance, as though he didn't care whether the elder was willing. In the Immortal realm, the Qing Emperor could kill anyone he wished, and even those he sought to save were beyond anyone else's interference. This was the arrogance of Qin Xuan, cultivated over millennia. His internal power flowed through the elder's meridians and located the root cause of his hidden injuries. A faint smile appeared on Qin Xuan's face. Though the elder was also a cultivator, the energy in his body was faint and insignificant compared to Qin Xuan's own power. There are several damaged meridians in your body, causing blockage of your energy flow, leading to frequent sharp pains. Additionally, the damage has caused an imbalance in your kidney energy and blood, leading to illness over time. Qin Xuan spoke calmly, his power lightly stirring as he began to warm the injured meridians. I've given you a preliminary treatment. If you bring me a prescription, I can refine some pills to restore your body to full health. What? The elder was struck with disbelief. The young man's words were strikingly similar to what his old friend had told him. The only difference was that this boy had the confidence to heal him, whereas his old friend had only been able to offer temporary remedies. This was the difference between treating the symptom and the root cause. Even someone of the elder's standing could hardly believe it. Are you serious? Do you think I would lie to you? Qin Xuan responded, seemingly amused by the question. The elder was momentarily stunned by Qin Xuan's tone. Despite the boy's youth, his words were brimming with arrogance. But the young man's actions had given him a strange sense of trust, especially considering the depth of his inner energy just now. Could this boy truly be a master of inner energy? Taking a deep breath of the cool night air, the elder took a somewhat worn-out pen from his chest and spoke in a raspy voice, "Xiao Yi, bring me some paper." "Master Mo, he's probably a scammer, you mustn't trust him." Xiao Yi's anxiety flared, and he moved to draw his gun from his waist. Qin Xuan noticed this and was surprised. The elder's companion was carrying a gun? It seemed this elder was no ordinary figure, but so what? Qin Xuan smiled faintly, thinking that someone like this would be a good person to ask questions. "I told you to bring me paper." Elder Mo turned around, seeing Xiao Yi's actions and growing furious. "Do not be disrespectful to this young man." Although Xiao Yi was reluctant, he quickly turned and hurried toward the Audi parked outside the lake. The elder's gaze fixed on Qin Xuan. No matter how young this boy appeared, the depth of his inner energy had shaken him. It was clear that Qin Xuan was not someone ordinary. "May I ask your name, sir?" "Qin Xuan." The elder thought for a moment, but found that there was no prominent Qin family in the city, which left him puzzled. Soon, Xiao Yi returned with the paper, and Qin Xuan, relying on his memory, wrote down some basic herbs. Though they were ordinary plants, with his refining abilities, healing the elder's injuries would not be difficult. "After you've gathered the herbs, contact me again." Qin Xuan added his phone number to the paper after a brief moment of consideration. He still had some questions for the elder to better gauge where his abilities stood in comparison to other cultivators on Earth. After that, Qin Xuan intended to leave. "At this hour, there are no more cars on the road. Would it be alright if I gave you a ride?" Elder Mo asked, his eyes glinting with a hint of light. "Sure." Qin Xuan agreed calmly and sat in the place where the elder had been sitting. After Qin Xuan left, Elder Mo sat in the car, gazing at the boy's youthful back, deep in thought, unable to find the right words. This boy was terrifyingly young, yet already a martial artist who had cultivated inner energy. And he was not from one of the city's noble families. Who, exactly, was he? "Master Mo, with your status, why would you believe such an unknown person?" Xiao Yi asked in confusion. He knew the elder's power with a single stamp of his foot. He could shake an entire province, so why was he treating this young man so personally, even offering to drive him home? Elder Mo stared quietly at the old residential building in front of him. With a deep sigh, he looked at Xiao Yi and said, "I never expected that, after 10 years away, I would return to find someone like him in this city." "Xiao Yi, remember one thing. Do not underestimate the water in a pond. Even the shallowest waters may harbor a dragon hidden within." Chapter 4, Stepping Underfoot. In the simply decorated living room, He-yun sat on the sofa, anxiously glancing at the clock on the wall. It was already past midnight, and yet Qin Xuan had not returned. What on earth is Xiao Xian doing? "Sis, he's grown up, he needs some personal space," replied He-yu, who sat beside her. She resembled He-yun quite a bit but still looked quite youthful. Her small face was cold, and her tone of voice was equally distant. "He-yu, can you stop talking?" He-yun said, her tone tinged with frustration. "Xiujie asked us to look after Xiao Xian. What if something happens to him? How are we going to explain it to Xiujie?" He-yu lowered her gaze. Her sister's reprimand made her even more displeased, and she even felt a tinge of resentment toward Qin Xuan. Ever since Qin Xuan came, He-yun's concern for him had surpassed her own, and though she wouldn't admit it, He-yu felt neglected. Because of that, she never looked kindly at Qin Xuan. A faint sound of the door opening broke their silence, and the sisters looked toward the entrance at the same time. "Xiao Xian." He-yun was visibly relieved upon seeing the figure at the door. However, He-yu scoffed and stood up. "Sis, I'm going to bed. I still need to study tomorrow." Qin Xuan looked at the two sisters, and distant memories filled his heart, making him feel bittersweet. I'm back," Qin Xuan thought, feeling warmth flood his chest, though his heart was also heavy. It seemed like not only had my cultivation vanished, but even my Dao heart has disappeared. Qin Xuan thought stubbornly, unwilling to admit it, but as he gazed at He-yun's familiar figure, he couldn't help but feel his eyes turn red. He-yun immediately rushed over and hugged Qin Xuan tightly. "Where have you been? It's so late, do you want to worry your auntie to death?" Qin Xuan's eyes widened in surprise. Despite being of similar height to He-yun, she was wearing a nightgown, and her soft body made his heart tremble. He-yun, I'm not a child anymore. Why do you still treat me like one? Qin Xuan, flustered, struggled to free himself, his face slightly flushed. Seeing that Qin Xuan was fine, He-yun finally let out a breath of relief. She couldn't help but smile as she saw his embarrassed expression. Oh, now you're shy. Well, Xiao Xian's grown up now, huh? You think your auntie's getting old? Qin Xuan rolled his eyes at He-yun's teasing. In the past, he never liked being treated like a child, but now it warmed his heart. This was a feeling he hadn't had since stepping into the world of cultivation. He-yun grabbed Qin Xuan's arm and led him to the sofa. Clearing her throat, she spoke in a tone similar to a parent's reprimanding voice. So, what took you so long to get back? Although He-yun sounded stern, a smile couldn't help but appear in her eyes, especially when she saw Qin Xuan's embarrassed reaction. Normally, Qin Xuan would have said nothing and gone straight to his room, but this time, he responded differently. I went for a walk, to see the sights of Jingshui City, Qin Xuan said softly, locking eyes with He-yun's bright, autumn-like gaze. Sorry to worry you. He-yun was stunned. For a moment, she stared at Qin Xuan, dazed. No, it's fine, He-yun said flustered, her heart racing. She had never seen Qin Xuan apologize before. It's late, you should get some rest, He-yun, Qin Xuan said with a warm smile, before turning and walking to his room. When did Xiao Xian learn to apologize? He-yun quickly snapped out of her daze, her thoughts filled with confusion. You came back this late, you weren't out with a girlfriend, were you? Qin Xuan raised his hand and waved it casually, then slammed the door shut with a loud thud. Xiao Xian really has a girlfriend now? Well, it's normal at this age, He-yun muttered to herself, remembering the firm feel of his body when she hugged him earlier. Her face flushed slightly. It seems like he's really grown up. Back in his room, Qin Xuan gently touched the desk that had accompanied him for 3 years, a faint smile spreading across his face. Opening the second drawer on the right side of the desk, a framed photo appeared before him. The photo showed a man and a woman, along with a young boy around 13 or 14. The three of them were happily enjoying their time by Mingxin Lake. Qin Xuan couldn't help but recall his memories from his past life. His father, Qin Wendy, was from the Jinling Qin family. He had fallen in love with Qin Xuan's mother, Qin Xinxiu, and had rejected the arranged marriage set up by his family. In a fit of anger, he had severed ties with the Qin family. Not only that, he had openly registered his marriage with Qin Xinxiu and proudly presented it to his father, Qin Xuan's grandfather, almost giving the old man a heart attack. After that, Qin Wendy and Qin Xinxiu had left the capital and moved to Jingshui City. Qin Xinxiu, a top student in finance, and Qin Wendy, who refused to live an ordinary life, had decided to start a business when Qin Xuan was 14. They left and never returned for 3 years. But Qin Xuan knew that, in those 3 years, his parents had built up over 100 million in assets and became a legendary business success. Meanwhile, Qin Xinxiu had become a prominent underground figure in southern Jiangnan. At the time, Qin Xuan had no idea about all of this. In his youth, Qin Xuan had been filled with resentment, thinking his parents had abandoned him and left him with others. He had refused to answer their calls, even placing this family photo in the drawer, allowing it to gather dust. He only knew from He-yun that his parents had been busy with their business and were doing well. At that time, he was in the midst of adolescence, filled with rebellious stubbornness. Looking back on his past actions, Qin Xuan felt an overwhelming sense of shame. Dad, Mom, I will never disappoint you. Qin Xuan murmured softly, his gaze turning sharp and cold. Chen Zixiao, in my past life, you destroyed my family. You didn't even give me the chance for revenge. You didn't expect me, Qin Xuan, to return, did you? Chen family, Chen Zixiao. In his past life, Chen Zixiao had been an untouchable existence in Qin Xuan's eyes. His parents' 3 years of hard work had been obliterated in just 3 days by the Chen family. His mother's company went bankrupt, his father's influence was split and swallowed up, and even the chance for a comeback was denied. They were left with nothing. Qin Xuan clenched his fists tightly, his head lowering. He hated himself for being so reckless and naive. He hated that his parents' 3 years of hard work had been destroyed by his impulsiveness. He hated that the Qin family had stood by and watched the Chen family destroy his parents' legacy without intervening. Even at his parents' funeral, not a single person from the Qin family showed up, leaving behind only a document expelling his father from the family. But, so what? This time, Qin Xuan, is back. The Chen family and the Qin family are nothing in my eyes. The humiliation I once endured, I will repay it one by one. Those who once tried to send me to hell will be destroyed, piece by piece. This time, I, Qin Xuan, will leave no regrets. Qin Xuan suddenly lifted his head, a kingly aura filled with ambition radiating from him. He swore silently. He, the Azure Emperor, Qin Xuan, would eventually step upon this prosperous city and make it his own. Chapter 5, An Invitation from Old Mo. The next morning, as the first light of dawn appeared, Qin Xuan woke from his meditation, stretching his body in a peculiar posture. This was the divine demon body refining diagram, which greatly benefited his physique. He had acquired it in the divine demon battlefield and, with his current physical condition, he could only barely perform the first level, refining his body. When the sunlight fully illuminated the room, Qin Xuan, drenched in sweat, walked out of his room, intending to take a shower. As he opened the bathroom door, a figure appeared right in front of him, nearly colliding with him. "What are you doing?" He was startled and looked at Qin Xuan, furious. Qin Xuan furrowed his brow slightly. "Taking a shower." He looked at who was in her nightgown. Her slightly awkward figure was obscured, but her two fair, jade-like legs, reminiscent of porcelain, made his head spin. "What are you staring at? Hurry up and go." Gritted her teeth, her voice filled with annoyance. She slammed the door shut and returned to her room. Qin Xuan shook his head slightly and smiled as he walked in. After taking a quick shower, he returned to his room, changed clothes, and planned to head to Mingxin Lake for some cultivation. As he walked out of the building, he froze slightly. "What are you doing here?" Xiao Yi was waiting downstairs. Upon seeing Qin Xuan, he was overjoyed. "Mr. Qin, old Mo asked me to wait for you," Xiao Yi said. "The herbs you requested are all prepared." "That fast?" Qin Xuan was a bit surprised. Although he knew old Mo had a distinguished background, he hadn't expected the preparations to be completed so quickly. "Let's go." He nodded lightly and got into the car. Upstairs, who had happened to catch a glimpse of the scene through the edge of her bed, was puzzled for a moment but quickly showed a look of disdain. "Not ambitious at all. I really don't know what my sister sees in him." Mingming Villa, located on Moonlight Mountain by Mingxin Lake, was known as the most luxurious villa district in Jingshui City. Villas here often cost tens of millions, especially the first villa at the peak of Moonlight Mountain, known as the Pearl of Jingshui. It was said that the villa had once been sold for 38 million, making it the most expensive villa in the city. Qin Xuan and Xiao Yi's destination was this Pearl of Jingshui, the first villa in the city. "Mr. Qin, we're here." After they got out of the car, Xiao Yi respectfully invited Qin Xuan in. Qin Xuan smiled lightly. He had already learned Xiao Yi and old Mo's identities on the way. Xiao Yi's real name was Mo Yunyi, a distant relative of the Mo family. He had lost both parents at a young age and had followed old Mo for many years. As for old Mo, his real name was Mo Jingfeng. Hearing this name, Qin Xuan recalled it. Mo Jingfeng, the patriarch of the Mo family, a dominant figure across multiple provinces near the sea. His every move could shake an entire province. His status was extremely high. In his previous life, Qin Xuan had only heard of this name, but never imagined that he would coincidentally meet Mo Jingfeng as a guide. "Old Mo is waiting inside the villa for you," Xiao Yi whispered, leading Qin Xuan inside. As soon as Qin Xuan stepped into the villa, old Mo stood up. "Mr. Qin." Mo Jingfeng smiled, standing with his hands behind his back. Qin Xuan smiled lightly. "Are the herbs ready?" "They are all here," Mo Jingfeng said with a smile, pointing to a small box in front of him, filled with herbs. "Then, give me a room." Qin Xuan nodded and picked up the box, following Mo Jingfeng inside. These were ordinary herbs, so there was no need to refine them into pills. Qin Xuan sat cross-legged, placing the herbs before him. He activated the everlasting green technique. This technique was naturally suited for controlling the power of plants and herbs. As the medicinal power gathered in the air, it fell into a porcelain bowl in front of him, and the clear water inside turned into a bluish-green color. Opening the door, Qin Xuan held the bowl of medicinal liquid and walked out. Behind him, the herbs had already turned into powder, disappearing into the air. Mo Jingfeng was pacing, waiting. Upon seeing Qin Xuan, he froze for a moment. Mr. Qin, do you need anything else? Only 10 minutes had passed, and Mo Jingfeng thought Qin Xuan hadn't started refining yet. No, this medicine is for you. After you drink it, I will personally help you dissolve the medicinal power, and you will recover. Qin Xuan said calmly. What? Mo Jingfeng and Xiao Yi were both stunned. Had he really finished refining already? It had only been a short time. Even an internal force martial artist or a master alchemist couldn't achieve such results so casually, right? Mo Jingfeng took the bowl of medicinal liquid, his expression changing several times. Do you not believe me? Qin Xuan smiled and didn't mind. If Mo Jingfeng hadn't been suspicious, that would have been abnormal. Mr. Qin is a man of great foresight. It's not that I don't trust you, but your methods are just too astonishing. Mo Jingfeng chuckled bitterly. It's just I'm not used to such extraordinary techniques. He gritted his teeth, made up his mind, and was about to drink the liquid. This pain had troubled him for decades. After seeking medical help in vain, he finally found a cure. How could he hesitate? Qin Xuan smiled faintly. Mo Jingfeng was decisive, which was no surprise after all, he led the Mo family. Suddenly, the door slammed open, and a woman walked in hurriedly, her face full of anger. She stopped in front of Mo Jingfeng, snatched the bowl from his hand, and glared at Qin Xuan. Grandpa, why are you so foolish? How can you trust a kid like him? She said angrily. Then, turning to Qin Xuan, she threatened, you'd better get out of here, or I'll break your legs. Qing Lian, don't be rude. Mo Jingfeng shouted angrily. He grabbed the bowl back and set it aside, then turned to Qin Xuan. I'm sorry, Mr. Qin. My granddaughter is ignorant. Please forgive her. Qin Xuan didn't get angry. He looked at Mo Qinglian, who had long hair and a beautiful face. Her eyes, like water, were filled with anger, and her lips were slightly clenched. Her blue jeans covered her long legs, and her chest was full and round. If this woman lived in ancient times, she would have been a beauty who could topple kingdoms. In the modern day, her stylish attire added to her charm. Grandpa, I can guarantee that he's just a scam artist. Mo Qinglian was even angrier after Qin Xuan dared to look at her like that. A boy younger than her, what could he possibly do? Her grandfather, Mo Jingfeng, was important to her, and she couldn't just let a mysterious, unproven kid treat his wounds. Was he supposed to be better than the top experts, both domestic and international? Qinglian, you, Mo Jingfeng smiled bitterly, full of apologies. I've spoiled you too much. Mr. Qin, please don't mind her. Qin Xuan naturally wouldn't argue with Mo Qinglian. He smiled slightly and said, you say I'm a scam artist. What proof do you have? Mo Qinglian froze for a moment. She didn't have any proof. Seeing Qin Xuan's smile only made her angrier, and she coldly said, fine. Since you say you can treat my grandpa, how about we have a competition? If you can beat me, I'll believe you have the ability to treat my grandpa's injuries. If not, get out of here. Mo Qinglian sneered. Don't tell me you're too scared to accept. Her arrogance was palpable. Although she was young, she had been taught by martial arts masters since childhood. Now that she had developed inner strength, she was considered a half-step internal force practitioner. Oh. Qin Xuan smiled and looked at Mo Qinglian. All right. You agree? Mo Qinglian was taken aback, a bit surprised. Why not? Qin Xuan smiled, and Mo Qinglian trembled with rage, wishing she could tear his mocking smile apart. Chapter 6: Defeat you with just one finger. Okay. Mo Qinglian looked cold. I want to see how many moves you can block from me. Mo Jingfeng did not stop him. He looked at Qin Xuan, and a gleam of light flashed in the depths of his eyes. Has he never suspected that Qin Xuan had ill intentions? After all, Qin Xuan was too young. He was only 17 or 18 years old, but he had special skills. No one knew his injury better than him. Even a martial arts master was helpless, but Qin Xuan vowed to heal it. What's more, at Qin Xuan's age, it was impossible to become an internal force warrior. He suspected, but he didn't say it. This is where Mo Jingfeng is old and cunning. He is not afraid that Qin Xuan will hurt him. He is the head of the Mo family. Once he has an accident, not to mention Qin Xuan, even a martial arts master will have to pay the price, not to mention Qin Xuan, who was just a teenager. Mo Qinglian came just in time for Mo Jingfeng to see the skills of Mr. Qin. Qin Xuan smiled but said nothing. He had seen through Mo Jingfeng's thoughts, but he didn't care. You better be prepared. Don't let me beat you to tears. Mo Qinglian's teeth were clattering. Why do you keep talking so much nonsense? Qin Xuan said indifferently. Stinky boy. Mo Qinglian shouted tenderly. She rushed towards Qin Xuan like a cheater. Her palms were like knives, carrying the sound of fierce wind and slashing at Qin Xuan. Qin Xuan smiled slightly, his feet seemed to take root, and his body tilted. The palm knife missed, and Mo Qinglian's face changed slightly. She swept out and hit Qin Xuan's neck directly. Bang! With a muffled sound, Mo Qinglian's face was slightly ugly. She only felt that her palms hurt, as if she had chopped on steel. Qin Xuan blocked the palm with his hand and smiled faintly. Is this your ability? Nothing more. With a shake of his arm, a powerful aura came out. Mo Qinglian's face suddenly changed. She stepped back several steps and looked at Qin Xuan in doubt. She had only seen this kind of aura in her master, and it was even better than that. How is it possible? How old is this kid? Mo Qinglian was shocked and dared not underestimate him anymore. Don't talk big, beat me first. Mo Qinglian gritted her teeth and said. Beat you? Qin Xuan smiled faintly, his expression calm. It only takes one finger. Qin Xuan made a move. He stretched out his index finger. In an instant, a flash of lightning seemed to pass across his finger. At this moment, his weak body seemed as heavy as Mount Tai and as powerful as Thunder God. Be careful. Mo Jingfeng's face changed and he shouted. Mo Qinglian was even more stunned. She felt that the person in front of her was no longer a person, but a god. This finger, like a pillar of heaven, continued to expand in her pupils. When she reacted, her chest felt numb, and she felt powerless all over, and she collapsed directly on the ground. Qin Xuan was standing in front of him, looking down. Are you convinced? Mo Jingfeng and Mo Yunyi were even more shocked, looking at Qin Xuan in disbelief. On Mo Qinglian's chest, a burn mark was extremely glaring, like a heavy hammer hitting the hearts of the two. They understood that Qin Xuan held back, otherwise this finger would be enough to pierce Mo Qinglian's heart. Mr. Qin, please show mercy. Mo Jingfeng hurriedly stepped forward, his face full of awe. That finger just now was so terrible that even he could not stop it. He finally understood how terrifying the young man in front of him was. Even among the internal force warriors, he was definitely a master. Mo Qinglian was even more dazed. She quickly reacted and struggled. She was so ashamed that she wanted to find a crack in the ground to crawl into. She had mocked Qin Xuan many times before, but Qin Xuan defeated her with just one finger. The gap was too big. If the other party had not shown mercy, how could she still be alive now? Touching the small hole on her chest, Mo Qinglian finally understood that the young man in front of her was not what she could imagine. If her master came here in person, she might have a chance of winning. Mo Qinglian bit her teeth. She stood up and whispered, Mo Qinglian. I am convinced. How could she not be convinced, and how dare she not be convinced? Qin Xuan smiled, stood with his hands behind his back, and his spiritual power returned to his dantian. Now, can you trust me? Qin Xuan said with a smile. Believe, Mr. Qin is so extraordinary, how can I not believe it? Mo Jingfeng said hurriedly. He helped Mo Qinglian sit beside him, then bowed and said, I'll leave my injury to Mr. Qin. As the head of the Mo family, he bowed to a young man. If it were in the outside world, or even the whole Lin Hai, it would definitely make countless giants dumbfounded. But now, this bow made Mo Jingfeng sincerely convinced. He picked up the medicine bowl and drank the liquid medicine. In an instant, his face flushed and he felt his abdomen burning, like a ball of fire burning. Sit cross-legged. A light shout came from behind him, and Mo Jingfeng immediately sat cross-legged on the ground. The body was burning like fire, and suddenly, he felt as if there was a palm behind him, and a force as cool as water, and the burning feeling disappeared wherever it passed. This force circulated his entire meridians, and finally stayed in the kidneys for a while, and then disappeared. When Mo Jingfeng opened his eyes, he wanted to roar to the sky. At this moment, his meridians were even wider. Not to mention the hidden injury, his strength was even better than before. This. Mo Jingfeng was stunned when he realized the situation in his body. He suddenly reacted and looked at Qin Xuan. Mr. Qin's great kindness, Mo Jingfeng will never forget it. This injury has troubled him for decades. Now he is finally healed. Mo Jingfeng is so excited. No need. Qin Xuan smiled faintly. You need to rest for a few days before you can recover. Immediately, Qin Xuan suddenly thought of something, frowned slightly, and said, but when I was healing you just now, I found that the technique you practiced was not complete and seemed to have defects. Mr. Qin knows. Mo Jingfeng was stunned. This technique was obtained by chance, and it was a fragment when he got it. Otherwise, he would not let Mo Qinglian worship other internal force warriors as his master. I will help you complete it when I have time. Qin Xuan smiled. This was just a casual thing for him. Mo Jingfeng was even more excited at this moment. Thank you, Mr. Qin. From now on, if Mr. Qin has any problems, Mo Jingfeng will go through fire and water without hesitation. Qin Xuan smiled and waved his hand. I don't need your Mo family to do anything for me. He motioned Mo Jingfeng to sit down, but asked about the current cultivation realm on Earth. China has been prosperous in martial arts since ancient times. Not only that, there are also Buddhist and Taoist conflicts. In today's China, martial artists are divided into 4 realms: internal strength, internal force, innate, and earthly immortals. Earthly immortals already imply earthly immortals with long lifespans and amazing magical powers. According to rumors, there is another realm above earthly immortals, but Mo Jingfeng does not know. So that's it. Qin Xuan smiled softly. His current low-level Qi training was already at the internal strength level in Mo Jingfeng's eyes, not counting the countless magical powers in his mind. He was afraid that he would break through to the middle stage and should be considered an internal force warrior. The Earth Fairy realm was the golden elixir. After talking for a while, Qin Xuan stepped away. Mo Jingfeng wanted to see him off in person, but was rejected by him. He wanted to go to Mingxin Lake, which was not far from here, so there was no need to see him off. Mo Jingfeng looked at Qin Xuan's back and said to Mo Yini and Mo Qinglian, now you finally know what it means to have a sleeping dragon in a shallow place, right? The two were silent and nodded vigorously. They finally understood that there are people beyond people and there are heavens beyond heavens. In this mere Jingshui city, there would be such a person. Of course, in the whole Linhai, this person is definitely a rare genius. Chapter 7 Zhuyungshuan. Until Qin Xuan left, Mo Jingfeng and the other two withdrew their gazes and looked at each other in silence. Xiao Yi? Mo Jingfeng suddenly spoke up, does our Mo family still have any property in Jingshui? Mo Yini was startled, and he quickly said, there are still a few. Give all these properties to Mr. Qin. Mo Jingfeng said slowly, in addition, the key to this villa will also be given to Mr. Qin tomorrow. Grandpa! Mo Qinglian exclaimed, covering her pink lips lightly. This Jingshui pearl is worth more than 30 million, nearly 40 million. Value is one thing, this is the residence of the Mo family in Jingshui city, and it is actually going to be handed over to that young man. Not only that, plus the Mo family's several properties in Jingshui city, this time, Mo Jingfeng gave away hundreds of millions of family property. These properties are certainly nothing to the Mo family, but giving them away for free, this is also. Mo Jingfeng smiled, stroked Mo Qinglian's head, and looked down at Mingxin Lake with a profound meaning. Qinglian, do you know what an internal force warrior represents? Mo Qinglian said, masters of martial arts are the foundation of aristocratic families. An internal force warrior is already a rare master in the martial arts world, such as her grandfather Mo Jingfeng. If Mo Jingfeng was not an internal force warrior, it would be impossible to support the huge Mo family. This is the true foundation of aristocratic families. Some people may have assets of hundreds of millions, but without the protection of masters, their lives are also in danger, and billions of family wealth may change hands at any time. Then do you know what an internal force warrior represents? Mo Jingfeng smiled, his eyes became deeper. A martial arts master is enough to suppress a region, sweep across a province, establish a sect, and be admired by thousands of people. Mo Qinglian continued, she was a little confused and didn't know what Mo Jingfeng meant. If the Lingshui Ju of my Mo family is intact, what does it mean? Mo Jingfeng smiled, his eyes flashed with brilliance, and a ray of ambition ignited, as if he was 10 years younger. Let me tell you. If the Lingshui Ju is complete, I can definitely gather inner strength and become a martial arts master in my lifetime. Not only that, anyone with talent in my Mo family has the hope of gathering inner strength in their lifetime. Mo Jingfeng said in a heavy voice, "You must remember that a martial arts master can only live for 100 years at most, but a martial arts master can protect a family for 200 years. If Mr. Qin can complete the Ling Shui Ju, let alone the hundreds of millions of assets, even 10 billion, what can it count for?" Mo Qinglian suddenly realized, her pretty face was filled with incomparable shock. A martial arts master is simply a dragon, an elephant among all living beings, admired by thousands of people. She finally understood why Mo Jingfeng did that. As just said, hundreds of millions of assets are as light as a feather compared to a complete Ling Shui Ju. If Mo Jingfeng uses this to gather inner strength, who dares to provoke the Mo family in Linhai? Mingshan Lake, Qin Xuan found a secluded place to practice quietly. Time passed, the sun was shining in the sky, and he practiced for several hours at a time. Although the changes in the spiritual power in his body were not obvious, Qin Xuan was not in a hurry at all. The path of cultivation is not a one-day job. It takes years of accumulation, like water dripping through a stone, before you can seek the ethereal immortal path. Suddenly, Qin Xuan's ears trembled slightly, and his eyes slowly opened. "Mr. Qin." Mo Yuni came over, respectful. "What's the matter?" Qin Xuan looked indifferent, and was slightly unhappy in his heart. He didn't like to be disturbed during his practice, but it was a pity that this was Mingshan Lake. If he had a residence nearby, he wouldn't be so passive. As if he noticed Qin Xuan's reluctance, Mo Yuni's forehead was covered with cold sweat. "This is what Mr. Mo asked me to give to you, Mr. Qin." Mo Yuni gritted his teeth, smiled and handed a document and a key to Qin Xuan. "What is this?" Qin Xuan was stunned and a little surprised. "This is the transfer procedures for Juyongshuan, Hanshui Pavilion, TK Bar and some industries." Mo Yuni whispered, "There is also the key to the Jinghai Pearl." "Oh." Qin Xuan nodded slightly, he put these away and accepted them calmly. Mo Yuni carefully raised his head to peek at Qin Xuan, and found that Qin Xuan's expression was indifferent, without any strange signs, and he couldn't help but be secretly surprised. This is hundreds of millions of assets, and Qin Xuan is actually calm. This state of mind alone is probably not something that ordinary people can have. "Okay, in this case, take me to see it," Qin Xuan said lightly. How can the Mo family's industries in Jingshui City make him excited? He is the Green Emperor, even the billions of miles of territory in the fairy world have been stepped on by him, let alone these. However, with these industries, Qin Xuan can also have more financial resources. If he wants to improve his realm as soon as possible, money is inevitable in China. "Okay, Mr. Qin, please come this way." Mo Yuni showed a happy expression and hurriedly led the way for Qin Xuan. This time, he did not drive an Audi, but a top-of-the-line BMW X6, which had soft materials inside and was very comfortable to sit on. "Which of these industries is more important?" Qin Xuan said slowly. "These industries are all managed by a side branch named Mo Yunlong, who is usually in Juyongshuan." Mo Yuni answered honestly. "Mo Yunlong." Qin Xuan recalled that he remembered this name, a famous big man in Jingshui City, who was good at both black and white. According to rumors, even high-ranking officials in the city did not dare to provoke him. Once a director offended him, his body floated on Mingshan Lake the next day. It turned out to be him, no wonder. Qin Xuan nodded slightly. It was unexpectedly a member of the Mo family, no wonder he could be so unscrupulous. Along the way, Qin Xuan did not speak, and Mo Yuni naturally did not dare to disturb him. It was not until they arrived at Juyin Pavilion that Mo Yuni whispered, "Mr. Qin, we're here." "Yes." Qin Xuan nodded, got out of the car, and walked into Juyin Pavilion with Mo Yuni. In a luxurious office on the top floor of Juyin Pavilion, a fierce man with dragon tattoos on his arms was smoking, and two pretty women were massaging him gently on both sides. "Brother Long, what is the Mo family thinking? So many industries are handed over to others," one of the women said in a coquettish voice, with peach-colored eyes. Mo Yunlong reached his hand into the woman's cheongsam and played with her wantonly, making the woman gasp. "HMPH, how should I know?" Mo Yunlong's face was a little heavy. He had managed the industry for 10 years, but now he had to hand it over to an outsider for no reason. Who would be willing to do that? "But don't worry, baby. I can get rid of this young boy with just a few tricks." Mo Yunlong laughed and groped the woman's body unscrupulously. But, that was what old Mo told me to do. The woman panted. Ouch. The woman suddenly turned pale in pain. Mo Yunlong twisted her towering breasts hard, his face as gloomy as water. I know this, you don't need to remind me. As soon as their voice fell, a bold strong man who was 2 meters tall pushed open the door. Brother Long, the strong man said respectfully. What's the matter? Mo Yunlong looked unfriendly. Mo Yunyi is here, and he brought a young man with him, the strong man said hurriedly, in awe of Mo Yunlong. He was a powerful general under Mo Yunlong, named Zhang Hu. He had been learning martial arts from a master since he was a child. Later, he went out to beat someone and crippled him. Fortunately, he was saved by Mo Yunlong and has been following Mo Yunlong's men. You're here so soon. Mo Yunlong was startled. He stood up without paying attention to the 2 women beside him and said, why don't you go and greet them? Yes. Zhang Hu was about to turn around. No need, I'm already here. A faint voice sounded, and Mo Yunlong's face changed slightly. I saw a young man who was only about 17 or 18 years old in front, and Mo Yunyi followed respectfully behind, enter this room one by one. Chapter 8 I Need a Dog. Are you Mr. Qin? Looking at Qin Xuan, Mo Yunlong was in a daze. What kind of mister is this? He is just a young boy whose hair has not grown out yet. Come and greet me. Mo Yunyi saw Mo Yunlong standing in a daze and scolded him. Mo Yunlong woke up with a start. He glanced at Qin Xuan with contempt and said, Brother Yi, we can't make such a big joke. He is older than Mo Yunyi, but he calls Mo Yunyi brother. Everyone in the Mo family knows that Mo Yunyi has been with the old man since he was a child. Even the sons of the Mo family dare not get angry with Mo Yunyi. Mo Yunlong was even more unwilling to hand over his business to this young boy in front of him. As a big boss of Jingshui, he has a fierce and unruly nature in his bones. Over the years, many people have been defeated by him, and many have died. He was absolutely unwilling to hand over the business he had managed for more than 10 years to such a young boy of 17 or 18 years old. Even if it was given by Mr. Mo himself. How dare you? Mo Yunyi was furious. He knew Qin Xuan's strength. This was an internal force warrior. Even Mr. Mo claimed that he was no match for him. How dare Mo Yunlong disrespect him in person? Qin Xuan raised his hand to stop Mo Yunyi from speaking, and said lightly, You are the boss of Jingshui, Mo Yunlong. So what? Mo Yunlong frowned and said coldly, Although I don't know what Mr. Mo thinks, it's impossible for me to hand over the industries of Jingshui to you. Qin Xuan smiled lightly and didn't care. He looked at Mo Yunlong with a calm expression, I don't need you to hand it over to me. I just need a dog to help me manage the industries of Jingshui. What did you say, brat? Before Mo Yunlong could react, Zhang Hu got angry first. If Mo Yunlong hadn't said anything, he would have come over to destroy this ignorant boy. I said, I need a dog. Qin Xuan smiled faintly and said slowly. If you dare to insult Brother Long, I will destroy you. This time, Zhang Hu couldn't bear it anymore and rushed over to teach the guy who dared to insult Mo Yunlong a lesson. After all, Mo Yunlong was his savior. He punched out with a fierce wind and hit Qin Xuan's face directly. Bang! Qin Xuan didn't move at all. He stretched out his hand and grasped Zhang Hu's fist. Zhang Hu's face changed. He only felt that his fist was caught by an iron clamp. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't move at all. Crack! The next moment, Qin Xuan exerted a little force on his palm, and Zhang Hu's face turned extremely pale. He roared and sweated all over. He didn't know how many bones in his hand were broken, and such a terrifying power was actually possessed by the seemingly weak boy in front of him. How is this possible? Zhang Hu was a little bit unbelievable. He was not an ordinary person. He had practiced martial arts since he was young. He could easily knock down 7 or 8 people. But now, his palm was broken by a young boy. Qin Xuan was indifferent and slowly uttered a word, get lost. Covering his right hand, Zhang Hu was sweating all over his face. His face was as white as a piece of white paper. His bald head was full of blue veins, which looked extremely scary. I didn't expect you to be a martial artist. Mo Yunlong was even more angry. Qin Xuan insulted him and now he even hurt his people. Even if it was the old Mo who spoke, what could he do? He, Mo Yunlong, has worked diligently for the Mo family for so many years. Is this the treatment he deserves? What's more, he is the boss of Qin Xuan. Who in Qin Xuan dare not give face to him with just a word? Today, he was bullied by a young boy at his doorstep. If he could hold back his anger, he would not be Mo Yunlong. With a swish, a black gun pointed directly at Qin Xian. Mo Yunlong, what do you want to do? Mo Yunyi, who had been silent all this time, finally spoke, furious. If you dare to touch Mr. Qin today, Mr. Mo will kill you tomorrow. Mo Yunyi shouted angrily, his back soaked with cold sweat. This is Mr. Mo's distinguished guest. Not to mention Mo Yunlong, even he dared not show any disrespect. Now Mo Yunlong actually wants to kill Qin Xian? No problem. Qin Xian raised his hand and smiled indifferently. Do you think you can hurt me with a gun? It's ridiculous. Boy, don't refuse a toast and drink a penalty. Mo Yunlong growled, his eyes red, and the two women around him were already trembling with fear. Shoot, if you don't shoot, you're worse than a dog. Qin Xian still looked calm. He smiled slightly, took a chair and a fruit plate, peeled a grape, and chewed it carefully in his mouth. Looking for death? A flash of madness flashed in Mo Yunlong's eyes, and the ferocity in his bones was fully aroused. Bang! You dare! Mo Yunyi yelled, but it was too late. The bullet broke through the air and rushed straight to Qin Xian's forehead. The whole room was silent. Even Mo Yunlong froze. He was extremely regretful at this moment. He actually killed the person that Mo Lao had asked him to do because of a momentary anger. How could he explain this to Mo Lao? Even if he was a branch of the Mo family, Mo Lao would never forgive him. The next moment, everyone's pupils shrank and they looked at Qin Xian in disbelief. Two fingers, as thin as white jade, appeared in front of them. Qin Xian held the grapes in one hand and stretched out two fingers with the other hand. A bullet with a coppery luster was just caught between the two fingers. The room was dead silent. Mo Yunyi, Zhang Hu, Mo Yunlong and the two women all looked as if they had seen a ghost. Someone can actually catch a bullet with just two fingers, is this a movie? With a ding-dong sound, the bullet fell to the ground, and Qin Xian leisurely picked up the grapes again, peeled them, and threw them into his mouth. I said, I only need a dog, I wonder if you, Mo Yunlong, want to be one? Qin Xian said while eating grapes. He picked up another grape, and seemed very satisfied with the taste of the grapes. Mo Yunlong was already stunned. The boy in front of him could actually block the gun. If he was killed, how could he block it? In an instant, Mo Yunlong felt like he fell into an ice cellar. His whole body was cold, and endless fear rose in his heart. He finally understood why Mr. Mo would hand over Qin Xuan's property to this boy. Mo Yunlong lowered his head, and suddenly, he knelt on his knees. Mo Yunlong, I am willing to be a dog of Mr. Qin. He was full of fear, and there was no anger anymore. If he didn't, how could the boy forgive him? By then, he would lose not only Qin Xuan's property, but also his own life. Besides, if he didn't agree, even Mr. Mo wouldn't forgive him. Thinking of this, Mo Yunlong lowered his head even more and became more terrified. It's just a dog, not really a dog. No matter how high I climb, I'm just a dog of the Mo family. Now I just change my master. Mo Yunlong laughed bitterly. He raised his head and said, I am willing to be a dog of Mr. Qin. Qin Xian peeled the grapes leisurely, and then slowly threw the grapes into his mouth. The taste was sweet and sour, and he nodded with satisfaction. At this time, he looked at Mo Yunlong who was kneeling on the ground and responded. Yeah. Chapter 9 Birthday Party. Plop. A group of big men in black rushed down the stairs. These were Mo Yunlong's men. When they pushed open the door, they were all stunned. Everyone took a breath of cold air. Jinghai boss, their eldest brother actually knelt in front of a teenager? The young man was peeling grapes, which were crystal clear. Brother Long, what happened? One person couldn't help but ask. Mo Yunlong's body trembled slightly. Qin Xian didn't say anything, so how could he speak, let alone stand up? No need to kneel, get up. Qin Xian said lightly, slowly standing up from the chair. Mo Yunlong stood up as if he had been pardoned, thanked Qin Xian profusely, and was respectful to Qin Xian. What are you still standing there for? Hurry up and call, Mr. Qin. Mo Yunlong roared, glaring coldly at the group of black-clothed men. Mr. Qin. They didn't know what happened, but since Mo Yunlong said so, they had to do it. A row of black-clothed men bowed and saluted, but Qin Xuan still looked calm. It was as if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him, but he didn't change his face. "Put away your usual prestige, I don't need it," Qin Xuan said lightly. He turned and walked out of the room, saying, "Remember what you said, otherwise." His eyes turned cold, and he swung his hand and chopped back. In the horrified eyes of everyone, the 3-meter-wide rosewood table in the room collapsed to both sides with a click. The cut was as smooth as a mirror, and everyone was scared to death. Looking again, Qin Xuan's figure had disappeared. "Mr. Qin, I'll take you back," Mo Yuni said carefully. He was convinced. The bullet between his 2 fingers made the unruly Mo Yunlong willing to be a dog of Mr. Qin. This kind of power was better than that of Mr. Mo, yes. Qin Xuan nodded, stepped on the BMW X6, and drove towards Mingyu Lake. As the Green Emperor, Qin Xuan naturally understood that evil should be dealt with by evil. If a Jingshui boss like Mo Yunlong is not dealt with ruthlessly, it is hard to say how much trouble he will cause him in the future. If Mo Yunlong is really stubborn, Qin Xuan will not care and will just kill him. Jinghai Pearl, Qin Xuan stepped into the villa, and the whole villa had been packed up. "You go back to Mr. Mo," Qin Xuan said to Mo Yuni indifferently. "Tell Mr. Mo that I will send the complete exercises in 3 days, so he doesn't need to rush." "Yes." Mo Yuni lowered his head, slowly stepped back a few steps, and then turned and left. Qin Xuan chose a room to meditate and practice. The spiritual energy on Yuming Mountain is a little richer than Mingshan Lake, and the Jinghai Pearl is on the top of Yuming Mountain. I am afraid that there is no place in the whole Jinghai that is more suitable for practice than this place. If you have time to set up a spiritual formation, it can be considered a good place for cultivation. Qin Xuan closed his eyes and practiced the eternal evergreen art. A misty green light lingered around him and slowly overflowed. That night, Qin Xuan woke up and called He-yun, saying that he would not go back today. He-yun did not object, as she seemed to be very busy with work recently. However, Qin Xuan heard he use disdainful cold rebuke in the microphone. "Not doing your job properly." Qin Xuan smiled and did not care. He-yu was actually not bad, but because of some prejudices, he was more like a child. After that, Qin Xuan immersed himself in cultivation. This time, Qin Xuan practiced for a long time. When he woke up from the practice, he found that it was already the afternoon of the next day. The spiritual sea in his body was solid, and the progress was quite small, but it was better than nothing. "It seems that I should find some heavenly treasures when I have time, otherwise it will take some time to enter the middle stage of qi training." Qin Xuan shook his head and sighed. He stepped out of the room, and his cell phone rang as soon as he walked out of the door. "Mu Shuai." He picked up the phone and heard Mu Shuai's voice from the other end. "Qin Xuan, we will wait for you at Juyongshuan at 5 p.m. Mu Shuai's voice was very soft, with a hint of joy. "Got it," Qin Xuan replied indifferently. After hanging up the phone, a cold color flashed in the depths of Qin Xuan's eyes. It's a coincidence that it was at Juyongshuan. Qin Xuan remembered that the place in his previous life was not Juyongshuan, but a hotel. At this birthday party, Mu Shuai proposed to break up in front of everyone, and ridiculed Qin Xuan for being a toad wanting to eat swan meat. The sarcasm and laughter of the whole room almost made him crazy at that time. In the end, he left in a panic like a drowned dog amidst the laughter of everyone. After that, Qin Xuan spent the entire senior year in high school amidst the ridicule of the whole school. That period of time could be called hell for Qin Xuan. The feeling of being pointed at wherever he went was only known to the person involved. The evil words hurt his heart. Qin Xuan never forgot it, and even now when he thought of it, he couldn't help but feel cold inside. On the other end of the phone, Mu Shuai was in a clothing store, choosing clothes for her birthday dinner. "Shuai, did you call that guy?" Zhao Xiaoyu said with some disgust. "I really don't know how that guy could be so thick-skinned. He chased you for 2 years without even considering his own identity." "Xiaoyu." Mu Shuai smiled helplessly. "A person with no money, no background, and no appearance dares to pursue our Miss Mu. He is really a toad wanting to eat swan meat." Zhao Xiaoyu said confidently. "If you ask me, Shuai, if you want to find a boyfriend, even if your family doesn't have tens of millions of assets, you have to be like my Li Feng." The Li Feng mentioned by Zhao Xiaoyu is his boyfriend. His family opened a 5-star restaurant in Jingshui City, which is very famous. He is also handsome and attracts many people in school. Zhao Xiaoyu had to work very hard to get him. How can I be as lucky as you? Mu Shuai shook her head. Her family runs a small company and has tens of millions of assets. However, she seems peaceful, but in fact she is hot on the outside and cold on the inside, and she is extremely proud in her heart. Qin Xuan was just the bet she lost with Xiao Wu, and she never took him to heart. That's right. Zhao Xiaoyu raised her head proudly. The cold girl beside her smiled faintly when she heard the words, but she didn't say anything. She looked at Zhao Xiaoyu and Mu Shuai quietly, like a white snow lotus, alone in the world. Soon, Zhao Xiaoyu and Mu Shuai chose the clothes they liked and changed into them contentedly. Zhao Xiaoyu valued a French Saruti dress, which cost about 8,000 yuan. Mu Shuai valued a white Chanel dress, with delicate accessories, and the whole person looked like a princess. After the two of them chose, everyone in the clothing store couldn't help but focus their attention on them. Although they were not very old, in the eyes of the people around them, they were like two buds about to bloom. In addition, their temperament and appearance made them even more powerful than the mature women in the venue. The two seemed very satisfied with the effect and smiled brightly. Xiao Wu, don't you want to choose one? Mu Shuai suddenly turned her head and asked the girl like a pure lotus. No need. Xiao Wu said softly and closed the book in his hand. Let's go. The three of them left the clothing store and headed for Xuan. Chapter 10 Enemies in the Past Life. At 5 p.m., Qin Xuan took a taxi and arrived at the door of Xuan on time. I'm here. In the Dongmei pavilion of Xuan, Zhao Xiaoyu hurriedly greeted the others in the room. In the whole room, there were 3 men and 3 women, 3 of whom were very handsome and had a good background in Jingshui City. Among them were Wang Jiahao mentioned by Zhao Xiaoyu and her boyfriend Li Feng. Qin Xuan is here. Li Feng showed a sneer. He walked over and looked down through the window. Only Xiao Wu was still reading quietly, as if he didn't hear what Zhao Xiaoyu said. The door of Xuan is not so easy to enter. If a big shot wasn't coming today, I wouldn't ask my dad to book this Dongmei pavilion for us. Li Feng sneered, his eyes full of mockery. Of course, you are still the best, husband. Zhao Xiaoyu hugged Li Feng and kissed him on the face, full of pride. Xuan in Jingshui City is 1 level higher than the 5-star hotels. Even if you have money, you may not be able to book a room like Dongmei Pavilion. It is impossible to do so without sufficient connections. Mu Shuai and Wang Jiahao smiled softly on the side, and they looked at Qin Xuan. Qin Xuan followed a middle-aged man and walked towards Xuan with a calm expression. The show is coming. Li Feng whispered. Others also looked at Qin Xuan intently, wanting to see how Qin Xuan entered this door. Under Xuan, Qin Xuan walked into the door of Xuan. Several beautiful and fair-skinned etiquette ladies were shocked when they saw Qin Xuan. Welcome. They bent down 90 degrees in unison, and their heads were lower than usual. These people are all from Xuan. They saw Qin Xuan and Mo Yuni coming yesterday. Moreover, they vaguely heard that Xuan has changed its owner now, an even brother who suffered a big loss and was sent to the hospital. The middle-aged man walking in front of Qin Xuan was startled. He hugged his little lover with a trace of doubt on his face. When he came to Xuan on weekdays, these etiquette ladies didn't have such a good attitude. At most, they were respectful. When did they perform such a great ceremony? However, such an attitude made the middle-aged man raise his chest higher and his smile became overflowing. Boss Han, you still have face. The heavily made-up woman next to him said in a coquettish voice, and her voice almost numbed her bones. Han Piyu was extremely pleased, laughed a few times, and strode into Xuan. Qin Xuan's expression did not change from beginning to end. He didn't even look at the etiquette ladies, and walked into Xuan leisurely. Until Qin Xuan entered, these etiquette ladies dared to look up. One of the younger women whispered, "Is this Mr. Qin? The one who even beat Brother Hu seriously?" She didn't come yesterday. It was the first time she saw Qin Xuan. If the people next to her hadn't pulled her, she wouldn't have saluted like this. However, she also heard some fragments, but she didn't expect that Mr. Qin was so young. Judging from his age, he was only 17 or 18 years old. Sure, don't talk nonsense about this matter, be careful that Brother Long will throw you into Mingxin Lake. A woman next to her changed her color and lowered her voice. It seems that Mr. Qin has a powerful background and is the current boss of our Xuan. The woman changed her color. Qin Xuan actually changed its owner? That was Brother Long. For a moment, she couldn't help but be shocked. He actually came in. In Dongmei Pavilion, Li Feng and others were stunned. That person just now was Han Piyu, right? Wang Jiahao suddenly spoke up. His family runs a company and he has met Han Piyu once. Han Piyu, chairman of Qin Xuan Construction Company. Mu Shuai and others were slightly stunned. Li Feng also came to his senses and cursed, "This kid is really lucky." I guess the people in Qin Xuan thought he was Han Piyu's man. He was a little indignant. He originally planned to have some fun, but Qin Xian was actually safe and sound, which made him very disappointed. Li Feng, forget it, don't embarrass him. Mu Shuai also shook her head slightly. No matter what, they are in the same school as Qin Xian. Okay, Miss Mu, it's your birthday today, you have the final say. Li Feng smiled, turned around and hugged Zhao Xiaoyu and sat down. Qin Xian walked into Dongmei Pavilion. He looked at the group of people in front of him and smiled in his heart. What a coincidence, they are all acquaintances. Li Feng needs no introduction. In his previous life, he was humiliated at Mu Shuai's birthday party. This news was spread to the school by him, making him the culprit of their whole school's laughing stock. And Li Feng's favorite thing to do is to make trouble for him. He likes to step on him no matter what. As for Wang Jiahao, Qin Xian smiled lightly. It is said that after Mu Shuai humiliated him at the birthday party, he chose to be with Wang Jiahao. Wang Jiahao's family runs a company. It is said that with the help of a noble person, the assets of the entire company have increased several times. In addition, the bigwigs in Jingshui City and even Linhai gave him some face. At that time, Wang Jiahao was very popular in high school. Even Mu Shuai was finally pursued by him. History always repeats itself. Qin Xian sighed in his heart, and his eyes fell on the last woman. Xiao Wu. Seeing this woman, Qin Xian's heart was filled with ripples. At the beginning, he became the laughingstock of their whole school. In their whole school, the only one who did not laugh at him was Xiao Wu. This woman who was like a pure lotus, not only that, Xiao Wu often asked him to read books together. At that time, Xiao Wu was like a bodhisattva to Qin Xian. If it weren't for Xiao Wu, that nightmare might not disappear so quickly. Although Qin Xian had never seen Xiao Wu since college, he never thought that he would meet again now. Hey, our young Master Qin is here. Li Feng shouted sarcastically, quick, give young Master Qin a seat. Qin Xian glanced at Li Feng indifferently and said, you don't have to worry about it. Oh, young Master Qin has a bad temper. Li Feng's eyes were slightly cold, and he came to the opposite of Qin Xian and said coldly, play slowly in the future, I want to see how long you can be proud. Li Feng. Mu Shuai frowned. Li Feng immediately turned to a smile and said, Shuai, I just said a few words to your boyfriend, are you distressed? He glanced at Qin Xian with contempt, and his tone was very heavy on the word boyfriend. Mu Shuai looked at Qin Xian indifferently and said, come and sit down. The tone was very polite, and a little indifferent, treating Qin Xian as if he was just an ordinary friend. Qin Xian also said nothing, quietly walked to Xiao Wu's side and sat down, and with a glance, he knew what the book in Xiao Wu's hand was. This is a Buddhist scripture, all in Sanskrit. Ordinary people can't understand it at all, but Xiao Wu often likes to read it with great interest. After that, Mu Shuai and others ignored Qin Xian and started to order dishes. There were other classmates coming. And from their discussions, it was heard that there was another big shot who was specially invited by Wang Jiahao. Qin Xian, right. Qin Xian sat calmly aside, and suddenly heard Xiao Wu's voice. Yeah. Qin Xian nodded and smiled lightly, something. Xiao Wu glanced at Qin Xian, her eyes clear as water, and said, Mu Shuai and I made a bet before, you have to be mentally prepared. She was a little reluctant, and seemed to understand what would happen that night. Qin Xian smiled, Xiao Wu was still as kind as in his previous life. I know. Qin Xian said softly, the world is unpredictable, but it may not be a bad thing. He turned his head and smiled, looking at Xiao Wu, am I right? The third lady of the Xiao family. Xiao Wu's face was stunned, and her calm pupils were full of surprise at this moment. How do you know? Chapter 11 Birthday Gift. Qin Xian smiled at Xiao Wu's question and naturally did not answer. In his previous life, he talked with Xiao Wu during the most tormenting period. The other party treated him like a guest, but he learned the other party's identity in an accidental phone call. Xiao family. During college, Qin Xuan was familiar with this name, but Xiao Wu was an illegitimate daughter, and her mother became a nun, so Xiao Wu was kind by nature since childhood, worshipping Buddha and Taoism. 10 minutes later, almost everyone who should come came. More than a dozen boys and girls gathered together. Their families were either rich or noble, and they had a considerable background. Mu Shuai never looked at Qin Xuan again and smiled. Come on, let's wish Shuai a happy birthday. Zhao Xiaoyu jumped up, opened a bottle of red wine from a Bordeaux winery in France, and toasted. A group of boys and girls, happy birthday, Shuai. Happy birthday to Mu Shuai. A group of boys and girls cheered, and even Xiao Wu stood up, raised a glass of red wine, and smiled. Mu Shuai was surrounded by stars, wearing a white dress, as if she was a proud princess in the world, beautiful beyond description. Thank you all. Mu Shuai smiled and was extremely happy. Hurry up, let's all give birthday gifts. Li Feng put down their wine glass and said loudly. Since it was Mu Shuai's birthday, how could they, a group of young masters and rich girls, be without gifts? Everyone immediately took out gift boxes of various sizes and placed them in front of Mu Shuai, each of which was worth a lot of money. Shuai, this is my gift to you. Suddenly, Wang Jiahao stood up and smiled gently. There was a hint of spring breeze on the young boy's tender face. A crystal box was placed in front of Mu Shuai, and inside was a piece of white jade, which was completely transparent and shimmered with a soft luster under the light. This, isn't it? Zhao Xiaoyu suddenly covered her mouth and exclaimed. She saw the name on the crystal box, Tirfei, an internationally famous jade carving master. Not to mention the quality of this jade, the name Tirfei alone is worth at least 100,000. My God, Wang Jiahao, why did you give such an expensive gift? Even Li Feng was very surprised and said in disbelief. Mu Shuai was even more stunned, looking at Wang Jiahao's gentle smile, her face slightly flushed. She is also a young girl, just beginning to fall in love, and naturally has fantasies about her future boyfriend. This piece of jade is worth at least hundreds of thousands, right? Some people around were discussing. They are indeed either rich or noble, but after all, they are here, only more than 10 years old, and giving away hundreds of thousands at once is already a big deal. Wang Jiahao smiled lightly and said, not counting the carving, it's exactly 180,000, the same age as Shuai. A beautiful jade goes with a beautiful woman. Let alone 180,000, even if it's 1.8 million, I think it's worth it. Mu Shuai covered her mouth and her heart softened. She was proud in her heart. She was a proud girl. At this moment, she couldn't help but be moved. The others were even more envious. The jade pendant of 180,000, plus Tirfei's personal carving, roughly calculated that it would cost at least more than 300,000. Jiahao, you are really mean. You didn't tell me this. Li Feng said unhappily and punched Wang Jiahao in the chest. Li Feng, when can you give me a piece? Zhao Xiaoyu's eyes were shining, and there was a bit of bitterness in her tone. Li Feng gritted his teeth and said, I'll give you a piece on your birthday. It's just a few 100,000. It's nothing to him. At most, he can ask his parents for more. The last person to present a gift was Xiao Wu, a Buddhist scripture. Everyone knew that Xiao Wu believed in Buddhism and worshipped Buddha. For her, the Buddhist scripture was already very precious. Even if someone wanted it, Xiao Wu would never give it to anyone. By the way, Qin Xuan, where is your gift? Someone suddenly spoke and looked at Qin Xuan. Everyone presented birthday gifts, but Qin Xuan was the only one who sat there, sipping red wine leisurely. Zhao Xiaoyu glanced at Qin Xuan with disdain and said sarcastically, You are Shuai's boyfriend after all. You didn't even prepare a birthday gift, did you? Yes, Qin Xuan, you are Shuai's boyfriend. The gift you gave must be very expensive, right? Li Feng also sneered, with a mocking face, waiting to see Qin Xuan's joke. The rest of the people focused their attention on Qin Xuan. Even if it was a bet, Qin Xuan was Mu Shuai's official boyfriend now. No matter what, if the gift was really too cheap, they would probably laugh their heads off, right? Wang Jiahao sneered and looked at Qin Xuan. Yes, you are Shuai's boyfriend, didn't you even bring a birthday present? Har har, Jiahao, how can you say that? If it were me, I would probably think the gift was too shabby and not presentable. Li Feng laughed even louder. Qin Xuan. Mu Shuai suddenly spoke, and the voices in the whole room gradually quieted down. Everyone looked at Qin Xuan with a mocking look. It was as if Qin Xuan was a poor creature. They and Qin Xuan were from the same school, so they naturally understood what this poor boy looked like. Gift? What a joke! If it were them, they would have been too embarrassed to stay any longer. On the other hand, Qin Xuan was leisurely and took a sip of red wine and took out an envelope from his clothes. This is my gift. Qin Xuan put the envelope next to Mu Shuai and smiled slightly. Envelope. Everyone was stunned, and then one person laughed, and then the laughter resounded throughout the Dongmei Pavilion. Don't tell me you sent a check. Har har har, you sent a letter. Could it be a love letter? Oh my god, it's Shuai's birthday, and you sent a letter. Sister, you are so generous. A group of boys and girls laughed wantonly, looking at Qin Xuan with contempt, disdain, and ridicule. Xiao Wu turned her head slightly. She looked at Qin Xuan's calm expression, and a hint of doubt flashed in her eyes. She could see that Qin Xuan was not pretending to be calm, but didn't care at all, as if those who laughed at him were clowns, while this boy was as steady as a mountain. Mu Shuai showed a disappointed look. She thought that even if Qin Xuan didn't send any expensive gifts, he should at least be attentive. What's the matter with sending an envelope? Forget it, why bother? Mu Shuai smiled lightly, didn't even take the envelope, said something, and sat down to chat with everyone. Qin Xuan sat aside, neither sad nor happy, never looking at anyone, single and secluded. By the way, Jiahao, why hasn't the big shot you mentioned come yet? Suddenly, Zhao Xiaoyu said, blinking curiously. Before Mu Shuai's birthday party, everyone knew that Wang Jiahao was going to invite a big shot to celebrate Mu Shuai's birthday. Moreover, it is said that this person is not ordinary, and is a nobleman of the Wang family. Their parents are both well known in Jingshui city. They know that Wang Jiahao's parents have recently gained a lot of power. It is said that they have made friends with great big shots. Wang Jiahao was a little embarrassed and said, maybe he has something to do. By the way, I heard that your family, Jiahao, has invested another 20 million in the development zone, said a teenager whose family also runs a company. Wang Jiahao nodded and said, it should be. I don't know about my family's affairs. He said it very modestly, but with a proud look. The Jiahao family is still rich. When they become prosperous in the future, don't forget us. No, no. Wang Jiahao laughed. While they were talking, the door of Dongmei Pavilion suddenly opened and a charming and beautiful woman walked in. The whole Dongmei Pavilion was silent in an instant. Chapter 12 Two Worlds. This is a woman in her 20s, with a fresh yet charming makeup. Dressed in a cheongsam, her white legs swayed, making a group of young men blush and stare. The name of the visitor is Chumai, one of the two women beside Mo Yunlong yesterday, and the big sister who controls Jiyangshuan. No matter how big or small the people in Jingshui city see Chumai, they must respectfully call her sister Mai. As soon as Chumai came in, she saw Qin Xuan sitting quietly tasting wine at the side, and her heart was shocked. She also heard from the people at the door that Mr. Qin was here, so she came to see him. Unexpectedly, this was actually true. She was about to come over to say hello, but she saw Qin Xuan looking up and glanced at her gently. This glance made Chumai feel like she fell into an ice cellar. Yesterday, she looked into Qin Xuan's divine power without blinking. This young man seemed ordinary, but he was extremely terrifying. Even her man, Mo Yunlong, was just a dog in front of this young man, let alone her. Fortunately, Chumai was rational, she knew what to say and what not to say. This is the wine we offer to you at Jiyangshuan, it's not a respect. Chumai's voice was numb, and she signaled the servants behind her to bring it up. There were 5 bottles of Lafite, and the minimum price of a bottle in the market was 30,000. When they were gently placed on the table, everyone was stunned. After Chumai served the wine, she left politely. Fox spirit. Zhao Xiaoyu spit, and twisted Li Feng fiercely, causing Li Feng to grimace in pain. Who is the woman who just came? Someone asked in confusion, marveling at this generosity. 5 bottles of Lafite were given at once, which was simply a huge honor. Everyone knew that Li Feng had ordered Dongmei Pavilion today, and everyone's eyes were focused on Li Feng for a while. Li Feng is still the boss. Thanks to Li Feng this time, otherwise we wouldn't be able to drink such good red wine. Someone laughed with a red face. That person should be Chumai, right? I heard that she is Mo Yunlong's woman. She actually toasted us today. Some people were also shocked. Mo Yunlong, this is the boss of Jingshui. It is said that he is fierce and evil. No one in the black and white world dares to mess with him. I have heard of this Mo Yunlong. It seems that he was the one who did the Mingxian Lake incident a few years ago. A young man whose family is an official also exclaimed. For them, a person like Mo Yunlong is a tiger dominating Jingshui city. Even their parents dare not offend him, let alone them. Now that Mo Yunlong's woman personally toasted, it was such a big move. This face is too big. For a moment, everyone couldn't help but feel proud. HMPH, what about Mo Yunlong? When my Li Feng came, he came to toast. Zhao Xiaoyu immediately looked proud. The more capable Li Feng was, the more face she had. How could she not be happy? Mu Shuai also looked at Li Feng in surprise. She didn't expect that he had such ability. In the whole Dongmei pavilion, Li Feng was probably the most confused. Chu Mai? It was the first time for him to see Chu Mai, let alone let Chu Mai come to toast. What's the situation? Li Feng didn't understand at all. How much face was it to let Chu Mai come to toast? Not to mention him, even his own father would not be qualified. But now, how could Li Feng say it wasn't because of him? He secretly glanced at Wang Jiahao and didn't say much. With Chu Mai coming to toast, the whole Dongmei pavilion was even more boiling. Many people were in high spirits, but only Qin Xuan and Xiao Wu sat quietly aside without saying a word. Xiao Wu also moved his chopsticks slightly and didn't eat any more. She held the Buddhist scriptures and read them with great interest. Occasionally, she would look up and glance at Qin Xuan. She was slightly surprised to see Qin Xuan's secluded appearance. Xiao Wu felt that this person was very strange. There was an inexplicable attraction on him, especially Qin Xuan's calm and self-assured expression, which made her feel very comfortable. Compared with the impetuousness of the world, Qin Xuan seemed to be a real hermit, who remained calm even when Mount Tai collapsed in front of him. This calmness could never be faked. What's more, Qin Xuan actually knew his identity. In Jingshui City, she didn't even reveal a word to the closest people. Qin Xuan. Mu Shuai's pretty face was slightly red from drinking. She suddenly stood up and looked at Qin Xuan. The whole Dongmei pavilion was immediately quiet, and everyone looked at Mu Shuai. Har har, the show is coming. Li Feng smiled even more, his face full of sarcasm. Zhao Xiaoyu's eyes fell on Qin Xuan, and she felt even more relieved. She had long disliked Qin Xuan. A poor boy, but a toad wanted to eat swan meat. R. Only Xiao Wu sighed softly and looked at Qin Xuan beside her with some pity and sympathy. What's the matter? Qin Xuan looked up and looked at Mu Shuai calmly. I'm afraid this guy doesn't know what will happen. A group of boys and girls sneered in their hearts, but they didn't say it out loud. I invited you here today just to tell you something. Mu Shuai took a deep breath, her expression gradually became cold. I know you have been chasing me for 2 years, but we are really not suitable. I agreed to be your girlfriend before, actually just because of the bet between Xiao Wu and me. We bet that I will find a boyfriend to date for 2 months, and see who will break up first. If I propose first, I will win, and if you propose first, I will lose. But now it seems that I have won, and the boyfriend-girlfriend relationship between us is a joke. Mu Shuai spoke slowly, her expression was cold, and she no longer had the smile of the past. She breathed a sigh of relief, as if the big stone that had been pressing on her heart had fallen, and the disguise covering her face completely disappeared. Qin Xuan shook the red wine glass, said nothing, and his expression was as calm as that, as if he had not heard it. Mu Shuai snorted in her heart, thinking that Qin Xuan had not given up. In that case, I might as well tell you the truth. Mu Shuai's expression was cold, like a cold and beautiful princess, high and mighty. You and I are people from 2 different worlds. If it weren't for me, you would never have been able to enter a place like Juyongshuan in your life. It would be even more impossible to taste the red wine on the table so casually. You know that this glass of red wine may be your salary for the next month. You and I are destined to be like 2 parallel lines, and there will never be an intersection. Mu Shuai said slowly, do you understand? That's right, my Shuai has excellent grades and is the daughter of a rich family. You are bold man. Toads also want to eat swan meat. Zhao Xiaoyu jumped out and said all the words that were suppressed in her heart. In the whole school, only you are shameless. You know that you are poor boy with nothing, but you still dare to pursue Shuai for 2 years. Do you think you deserve it? At best, you can only be admitted to a second-rate university in the future. Our Schwa's grades are destined to be admitted to key universities, or even Tsinghua University or Peking University. Don't you look at yourself in the mirror? Do you deserve to be Schwa's boyfriend? She finished all the words in one breath, and looked at Qin Xuan angrily under the influence of alcohol, as if Qin Xuan was an unforgivable villain and a stumbling block for Mu Shuai. Are you done? Qin Xuan put down the wine glass, he stood up, and even had a smile. You still have the nerve to laugh. Zhao Xiaoyu saw this smile and became even more angry. Qin Xuan, get out of here quickly, this is not the place you should stay. Li Feng also stood up, his face full of mockery. Mu Shuai took a deep breath and looked at Qin Xuan. For the sake of your kindness to me in the past 2 years, you go. We will be strangers in the future and will not have any intersection. Chapter 13 Cicadas do not know snow. Qin Xuan laughed, as if he saw a group of clowns showing off their acting skills. Do you think you won? Qin Xuan said softly, how can a cicada know the beauty of winter snow, and how can a frog in a well see the vastness of the world? It doesn't matter, you don't have to rush to open the birthday present I gave you. He smiled softly and sat there without even looking at Mu Shuai. Birthday present. Mu Shuai was startled and snorted coldly, it seems that you are not giving up. In this case, I will let you give up. She opened the envelope and took out a piece of white paper from it. The next moment, Mu Shuai was stunned, her pupils contracted, as if she saw an extremely incredible scene. Shuai, what's wrong? What's written on it? Zhao Xiaoyu hurried to Mu Shuai's side, and for a moment, she was also stunned. A white paper fell on the dining table, with only 2 words on it, written in a deep stroke, revealing a kind of unspoken wildness and tyranny. Break up. Just 2 words, in an instant, the entire Dongmei pavilion fell silent. The gift Qin Xuan gave to Mu Shuai was actually a breakup. Who could have thought of it? That is to say, Qin Xuan proposed the breakup before Mu Shuai, how could it be possible? If it is said that the white swan dislikes a toad, this is natural. Who has ever seen a toad abandon the swan on its own initiative? This is too incredible, even Xiaowu was stunned. A strange light flashed in her eyes, looking at the handsome boy beside her, as if she knew him all over again. Not to mention Xiaowu, everyone was like this. Qin Xuan, what do you mean? Li Feng slammed the table and stood up angrily. My meaning is written on the paper. Qin Xuan said calmly, I came here today just to break up. He stood up slowly, with a domineering arc at the corner of his mouth. A joke? Yes, the 2 of us being together is a joke in itself. But you said it the other way around. It should be said that I am the one who is unworthy. Qin Xuan looked directly at Mu Shuai and said, you think you are quite pretty and can show off in front of me. Are you worthy? Do you know how many women I have seen as so beautiful that they can overwhelm the world? Do you think you have millions of wealth and dare to act recklessly in front of me? Are you worthy? Do you know that the wealth you show off is just a cloud in my eyes? You think you are princess who is high above, but in my eyes, you are not even worthy of carrying my shoes. Every time Qin Xuan said a word, everyone's face changed. You are always talking about high and mighty figures, but in my eyes, they are just as insignificant as the mortal world. You are right, we are not from the same world, let alone any intersection. Want to be my Qin Xuan's girlfriend, Mu Shuai, are you worthy? He spoke in a cold voice, with a domineering smile, looking down on everyone, standing there with a majestic demeanor. Everyone was stunned, as if they had seen a ghost. Qin Xuan, are you crazy? How dare you say such a thing? You really don't know how to live or die. Who do you think you are? Everyone was angry, furious, a poor boy in their eyes dared to say such crazy words in front of them. Mu Shuai was so angry that her face turned blue, and her gentle voice became sharp. Qin Xuan, who do you think you are? A poor boy with nothing, even if you work hard all your life, you are not worthy of me, and you dare to say that I am not worthy. I think you are completely stimulated and crazy. Qin Xuan, are you going to die? You dare to say this to our Shuai, you. You. Zhao Xiaoyu felt that she was going crazy. Qin Xuan picked up the red wine glass in his hand and raised it lightly. At this moment, the red wine fell all over Zhao Xiaoyu's face. Zhao Xiaoyu screamed, her face full of madness. Damn, kid, you deserve a beating. Li Feng was directly angry, rushed towards Qin Xuan, raised his fist and was about to hit him. The rest of the people were also furious, and they didn't intend to let Qin Xuan go. Their whole birthday party was in chaos in an instant. Bang bang bang. The next moment, 7 or 8 figures all flew out, smashing the entire Dongmei pavilion into a mess. A group of young men were staggering and wailing on the ground. This scene was like a heavy hammer hitting Mu Shuai's heart. Xiao Wu's eyes were full of light. How could Chana know the beauty of Dong Xue? These words moved her. What happened? Someone rushed in from outside and heard the chaos in Dongmei Pavilion. After coming in, a group of black-clothed men were stunned. They looked at the mess on the ground and the proud figure of the young man in the room. You came at the right time. This kid dared to hit people. Why don't you kick him out quickly? Li Feng roared with a ferocious face. Mr. Qin. However, the actions of all the black-clothed men stunned them again. All the black-clothed men trembled and bent down 90 degrees. This action was like a heavy hammer, which made them all stunned. Qin Xuan looked at Mu Shuai and said calmly, You said, if it weren't for you, I would never have been able to step into Juyongshuan in this life. Today I will tell you that the entire Juyongshuan belongs to me. Who is the Jingshui boss Missouri Yunlong you mentioned? I don't know him, but I happen to have a dog under my command. His name is Mo Yunlong. As he spoke, another figure came in from outside the door. Mo Yunlong and Chu Mai all walked in. How could a group of teenagers have ever seen such a scene? Even Jingshui boss Missouri Yunlong appeared. As soon as Mo Yunlong appeared, he knelt on the ground like a loyal dog, trembling. Mr. Qin. Mo Yunlong trembled, his face was pale, and beads of sweat fell from his forehead. In Juyongshuan, someone actually dared to attack Mr. Qin? This was simply giving him the loudest slap in the face. What made Mo Yunlong tremble the most was not anger, but fear. If Qin Xuan got angry, he might kill him with one palm. How could Mo Yunlong not be afraid of this kind of fear of life and death? Qin Xuan gently put the chair behind him and picked up the wine glass. Chu Mai hurried over, picked up a bottle of red wine, opened it, and poured it for Qin Xuan. Qin Xuan took a sip and said, Well, get up. He sat on the chair like an emperor, looking down on ants. Mu Shuai's face was dull, and this scene was like a knife stabbing her heart. Zhao Xiaoyu was like a drowned chicken, with a face full of fear and shock. How is this possible? That was Jingshui's boss Missouri Yunlong, and now he was kneeling in front of Qin Xuan like a dog. Is this world crazy? A poor boy is actually the boss of the entire Juyongshuan. Is she crazy or seeing an illusion? Li Feng and the others were even more incredulous. They couldn't believe that the ant that they had always ridiculed and teased had now turned into a tiger. Qin Xuan. Xiao Wu could no longer remain calm. She looked at the boy's calm appearance and suddenly understood. The bet between Mu Shuai and her, the show-off of Li Feng and Wang Jiahao, and the ridicule and disdain of Zhao Xiaoyu were the biggest joke in the eyes of this boy. That group of people were a group of real clowns, showing off their ridiculous acting skills in front of the people they could only look up to. Break up. Who is unworthy? Mu Shuai almost collapsed on the table and chair. At this moment, the words she had said before were so pale. What happened in front of her was like a series of slaps, making her cheeks hot. She was so ashamed that she had no place to hide. If it weren't for her inner pride, she would have almost cried. At this time, Mo Yunlong smiled and walked to Qin Xuan, flattering him, Mr. Qin, how do they deal with it? Just as Qin Xuan was about to speak, his expression suddenly changed and he smiled. At the door of Dongmei Pavilion, a figure slowly approached. When Wang Jiahao, who was a little embarrassed, saw this figure, he suddenly became extremely excited. Qin Xuan, you are dead. Chapter 14, The matter is done and she left. This figure was graceful, cold and peerless, and slowly entered the Dongmei Pavilion. When she saw the mess in the Dongmei Pavilion, and Mo Yunqian, Chu Mai and others, her eyes were filled with ripples. Miss Mo. Wang Jiahao ran to Mo Qinglian in a panic like a stray dog. There was a gleam of excitement on his face. This Miss Mo was from the Lin Hai Mo family. Even Mo Yunlong was just a dog of the Mo family. Now the real daughter of the Mo family was here. Even if Qin Xuan had a huge background in Jingshui City, in the eyes of this Miss Mo, he was just an ant that could be crushed to death at will. Miss Mo, it's a good thing you're here. Someone is making trouble here and hurt me. Wang Jiahao covered his abdomen and said in pain. There was a kind of excitement and pleasure in his eyes, as if the next moment, Qin Xuan would kneel on the ground and beg for mercy from him. Wang Jiahao even had the idea of how to humiliate Qin Xuan in his mind. Someone actually dared to hit him. He must avenge this. He must let Qin Xuan know that he is nothing but trash in his eyes. However, Mo Qinglian did not even look at him. She looked at Qin Xuan in surprise. Par. Mo Qinglian slapped him with her backhand. The red palm print made Wang Jiahao completely stunned. Mr. Qin, why are you here? She glanced at Wang Jiahao with some disgust, turned around and saluted, and said respectfully. Since the battle yesterday, she has been convinced by Qin Xuan. What's more, Qin Xuan treated her grandfather's injuries, and he is a great benefactor to the entire Mo family. Mr. Qin. Wang Jiahao was stunned by these 3 words. He covered his face and looked at Qin Xuan in disbelief. If Mo Yunlong called him that, he could understand it, but the big man in front of him was the daughter of the Lin Hai Mo family. Lin Hai Mo family. These 4 words are like a mountain in Lin Hai. Mo Qinglian is the granddaughter of Lin Hai Mo Lao. Now, such a beautiful girl is so respectful to call Qin Xuan Mr. Qin. Who is he? Everyone in Dongmei Pavilion was in a state of dismay, looking at Qin Xuan's calm and self-assured figure in disbelief. At this moment, this figure was like a mountain, and they could only look up to it. Even the nobleman mentioned by Wang Jiahao had to respectfully call Qin Xuan Mr. Qin, let alone them. Miss Mo. Mo Yunlong was even more frightened and saluted quickly. This is the granddaughter of Mo Lao. They are both from the Mo family, but their status is very different. What's more, there is a martial arts master behind this Mo Qinglian. Are you the big man he mentioned? Qin Xuan sighed slightly and shook his head and said, this world is really small. He never thought that the big man mentioned by Wang Jiahao was Mo Qinglian. Mo Qinglian was startled and smiled bitterly. How dare you call yourself a big shot in front of Mr. Qin? Are you scolding me? She was very humble, her eyes fell on Xiao Wu, she was slightly startled, and didn't say much. The whole Dongmei Pavilion was dead silent. The teenagers who were injured by Qin Xuan were already terrified at this moment. They now understand that this seemingly ordinary teenager is a person that they, and even their parents, can't afford to offend. If Qin Xuan wants to retaliate, let alone Mo Qinglian, Mo Yunlong alone is enough to make their family business for many years fall apart in one day. Mu Shuai was stunned again, she bit her lower lip tightly, her face was extremely pale. Mo Qinglian, both in appearance and temperament, is much better than her. Such a beautiful woman is respectful to Qin Xuan? She suddenly woke up and felt extremely regretful. If she had been better to Qin Xuan and became Qin Xuan's real girlfriend, what should she do? Mo Yunlong now has to be respectful to her, and the entire Zhuyongshuan will allow her to come and go as she pleases. Mu Shuai suddenly felt that she was ridiculous. She had never looked down on Qin Xuan, but the other party was a dormant dragon. She had a chance, but now Mu Shuai knew that she could never be with Qin Xuan again. As she said, from now on, they are people from 2 different worlds, 2 parallel lines that will never intersect. Now, do you understand? Qin Xuan looked down at the distraught Mu Shuai and said, in my eyes, you are nothing. This sentence, like the last straw, completely shattered Mu Shuai's inner pride and smashed it into dust. The facts were in front of her, and she couldn't even say a word of rebuttal. Qin Xuan smiled faintly, patted his clothes lightly, and walked out of Dongmei Pavilion without paying any attention to anyone. The matter was done and he left, and a smile wiped out the grudges. From now on, he and Mu Shuai nothing to do with each other. That night, he didn't care what happened in Dongmei Pavilion, but returned to Hiyun's house. Hiyun hadn't come back yet, but Hiyu was studying tirelessly. Hearing the sound of the door opening, Hiyu walked out of the room with a cold face. You still know how to come back? Hiyu pinched her waist and scolded coldly. Why can't you come back? Qin Xuan smiled faintly, ignored Hiyu, and went back to their house to pack up. You? Hiyu's face flushed with anger, and said, HMPH, don't think I don't know what you did. Today is Mu Shuai's birthday, right? Qin Xuan was stunned and a little surprised. How do you know? He suddenly remembered that Hiyu was also in the same school as him, and was also in the 3rd year of high school, but not in the same class. HMPH, Mu Shuai doesn't even look down on you, and you're still chasing after her. Hiyu said coldly, if you have time, you might as well improve your academic performance, otherwise Sister Xiao will blame us again. Qin Xuan smiled and looked at Hiyu. Hiyu was a famous genius girl in school. She was the first in every exam and the whole school treated her as a treasure. It's a pity that Qin Xuan studied hard in his previous life, but his grades were far different from Hiyu's. My mother won't blame you. It's just a little bit of grades. You can improve at any time. Qin Xuan said lightly. He is the Green Emperor of the Immortal realm. He can even comprehend the laws of the Great Tao, let alone academic performance. In his previous life, he was in despair and was admitted to a third-rate university. But now, how could he disappoint his parents? He already had a goal. A little bit of grades. Improve at any time. Hiyu sneered, and was even more disdainful in her heart. She originally thought that Qin Xuan could still make some progress, but he turned out to be a boaster. If it is so easy to improve grades, do you think others are fools? I want to see if you can still speak to me so confidently after the exam. Hiyu said coldly, and closed the door with a snap. She was indignant, but more disappointed. It is important for a person to know himself and work hard, but Qin Xuan just knows how to fall in love and doesn't study hard at all. After the college entrance examination, it will be too late to regret. Qin Xuan shook his head and laughed. Hiyu has always been like this, and he has long been used to it. He returned to the room, looked at himself, and shook his head slightly. It is really ridiculous that the Qing Emperor has to review high school textbooks. He packed his clothes and then went to the Pearl of Quiet Water. After a night of practice, Qin Xuan got up on time the next day and went to school. As soon as he entered the class, their whole class was quiet. Oh my God, I thought it was the head teacher. Then the whole class was like a pot of boiling water, extremely chaotic. Qin Xuan found his seat, took out the books, and looked at them quietly. With his current memory, reading 10 lines at a glance is not a problem. With his understanding of the Tao, it is very easy for him to understand these exercises thoroughly. Hey, Qin Xuan. Someone suddenly spoke and gently touched Qin Xuan. What's wrong? Qin Xuan was startled, and looked back, and found that it was a boy with curly hair. I heard that you broke up with Mu Shuai. The boy lay on the table and whispered. His name is Mengde, and he is one of the few good friends of Qin Xuan in his previous life. His father is an official, and his mother is also an employee of a listed company. It's a pity that his family suffered a disaster later, and it is said that he dropped out of college. Until Qin Xuan returned to Jingshui City, the two drank all night and confided the bitterness of these years. It seems that his parents offended someone who should not be offended, resulting in his mother's layoff and his father's fall. Don't be sad, there are buddies here, why don't I take you to play together tonight? Mengde smiled and pulled Qin Xuan. No, I don't care about it anymore. Qin Xuan smiled. Blow it up, go ahead. Mengde sneered. The goddess he had pursued for 2 years had blown up. If it was him, he would have tossed and turned for several nights. How could Qin Xuan not care about it? It's settled. Don't refuse. Mengde said directly, not giving Qin Xuan a chance to refuse. Qin Xuan was stunned, then sighed and nodded slightly. Chapter 15 Transfer. A morning passed leisurely. In the classroom, Qin Xuan was flipping calmly. The sun slanted down and shone on his side face. When the bell for lunch rang, the students rushed out of the classroom happily, and there was a noise. Xuanzi, I'm leaving first. Don't forget it tonight. Mengde smiled and patted Qin Xuan's shoulder. Qin Xuan nodded lightly and closed the book in his hand. In just one morning, he finished reading almost all the high school textbooks and imprinted them in his mind. Combined with the memories of his previous life, this knowledge was much easier for him to understand. Standing up slowly, Qin Xuan just walked out of the classroom door, and a figure like a pure lotus appeared in front of him. Why are you here? Qin Xuan was slightly surprised and looked at Xiao Wu. Xiao Wu was holding a Buddhist scripture, with no sadness or joy on her beautiful face. She slowly took out a note from the Buddhist scripture. Mu Shuai transferred to another school. Xiao Wu said softly, this is what she asked me to give you. Transfer to another school. Qin Xuan smiled and didn't care. He glanced at the note, which was written in a line of beautiful handwriting. There is a long way to go. Just 4 words, but they represent all the resentment in Mu Shuai's heart. Qin Xuan did not take the note, but took the Buddhist scripture in Xiao Wu's hand. What are you doing? Xiao Wu's expression was slightly cold. This Buddhist scripture was given to her by her mother, and it was her favorite thing. You like Buddhism very much. Qin Xuan chuckled and opened the Buddhist scriptures. The Buddhist scriptures were intact. Although Xiao Wu had turned them over hundreds of times, they were still not damaged. Xiao Wu did not answer this question and said, "Give it back to me." Qin Xuan returned the Buddhist scriptures and smiled lightly, "When I have time, I will give you a Buddhist scripture." Xiao Wu was stunned and said in surprise, "You like Buddhist scriptures too?" "I just know a little bit." Qin Xuan returned the Buddhist scriptures to Xiao Wu, put his hands in his pockets, and left leisurely. In his previous life, he had seen more than 1,000 Buddhist practitioners. Not to mention the world of cultivation, even the 3,000 pure lands of the fairy world allowed him to come and go freely. Although he did not practice Buddhism, copying down 1 or 2 Buddhist scriptures from his memory would definitely be a treasure in this world. Xiao Wu was stunned for a while, thinking that Qin Xuan was teasing her. She frowned and didn't care. When Qin Xuan disappeared, Xiao Wu realized that Mu Shuai's note was still in his hand. When he returned to the classroom again in the afternoon, the whole class was in chaos. "Do you know? Mu Shuai, the school beauty of our school, has transferred to another school. Is it true? How could Mu Shuai transfer to another school? She is already in her 3rd year of high school. I heard that Mu Shuai held a birthday party yesterday. By the way, didn't Qin Xuan go there?" Both men and women were extremely curious about the reason why Mu Shuai transferred to another school, and some people looked directly at Xiao Feng. "Hey, Mu Shuai transferred to another school. Do you know about this news?" Mengde turned his head and touched Qin Xuan's back. "Yeah." Qin Xuan nodded slightly without turning his head. "You know." Mengde was even more surprised and asked quickly, "What's the reason?" Qin Xuan shook his head, "I don't know." Seeing that Qin Xuan was unwilling to say more, Mengde laughed dryly. He knew about Mu Shuai and Qin Xuan and knew that he shouldn't say too much. As soon as school was over in the evening, Mengde happily pulled Qin Xuan. "Xianzi, where do you say we should go to play in the evening? You decide today." He laughed and pulled Qin Xuan to the school gate. Along the way, many surprised eyes gathered on Qin Xuan. The news that Mu Shuai transferred to another school spread throughout the high school in just one afternoon. Except for Wang Jiahao and others, no one knew the specific reason. Wang Jiahao and others would not tell their whole story. When they saw Qin Xuan, they also hid far away with a trace of fear. Qin Xuan smiled helplessly and said lightly, "How about TK bar?" "TK? Okay, Xianzi, it's tasteful." Mengde smiled aside. TK bar is the largest bar in Jingshui City. It is the best in terms of luxury and service attitude. It has gathered countless celebrities and guests. "Then let's go to TK bar." Mengde walked to the school gate, and a pretty girl not far away greeted him from a distance. The girl was wearing a t-shirt on the upper body and a long skirt on the lower body, which looked quite elegant. When Qin Xuan saw this girl, his eyes paused slightly. This girl was Mengde's girlfriend in high school, named Li Mengmeng. Mengde chased her for a whole year before she got her, which was also the thing Mengde was most proud of in high school. In the previous life, after graduating from high school, Li Mengmeng and Mengde were admitted to the same university. The two broke up in college. It is said that Li Mengmeng walked with someone else and was discovered by Mengde. This was also one of the important reasons why Mengde dropped out of school. In the words of Mengde in his previous life, "I was really blind to be with her." Mengde pulled Qin Xuan to Li Mengmeng and smiled, "Let's go, I'll borrow my dad's car today." Li Mengmeng smiled gently, and when her eyes fell on Xiao Feng, there was a hint of sarcasm in the depths of her eyes. Everyone knew that Qin Xuan was broken up by Mu Shuai, and this matter spread throughout the high school. However, this incident did not cause much commotion in high school. Instead, it was a very normal thing. If Qin Xuan and Mu Shuai did not break up, it would be surprising. "Mengde, where are we going?" Li Mengmeng said softly when Mengde walked in front of an Audi A4. "TK." Mengde smiled. He did not pay attention to Li Mengmeng's attitude at all. "TK." Li Mengmeng's face was slightly stiff. She pulled Mengde aside and whispered, "TK's consumption is not low. Do you need to invite Qin Xuan to that kind of place? TK bar is the largest bar in Jingshui City. The consumption inside ranges from thousands to tens of thousands. It is also a high consumption place in Jingshui City." Mengde's face was slightly stiff, and he smiled bitterly. "Meng Meng, you know that Qin Xuan was heartbroken today. Besides, Qin Xuan and I have always been good friends, so we don't need this little money. He ignored Li Mengmeng and said to Qin Xuan, Xuan Zi, get in the car quickly. Li Mengmeng was stunned, and her eyebrows on her elegant face were slightly frowned, but soon they relaxed. Mengder actually refuted her because of Qin Xuan, which made Li Mengmeng even more unhappy. A poor boy, I really don't know where he got the thick skin from. Li Mengmeng sneered in her heart. Qin Xuan was famous for his thick skin in high school, and he was also famous for pursuing Mu Shuai before. Everyone laughed at him, but Qin Xuan insisted for 2 years. Qin Xuan naturally listened to every word of Li Mengmeng and Mengder. It was not that he intended to, but now his 5 senses were sharp, and if he wanted to stop listening, he had to plug his ears tightly. He would not argue with Li Mengmeng, smiled faintly, and got in the car. 20 minutes later, under the huge neon lights, the car slowly stopped. Xuanzi, Mengmeng, we're here. The 3 got off the car and went directly into the TK bar. It was only a little after 5 in the afternoon, but the bar was crowded. Mengder, why don't we forget it? Li Mengmeng frowned. Mengder was also a little embarrassed, and whispered, I'll go ask. After a few minutes, Mengder returned with a happy look. Let's go. He said happily, there's a seat. Chapter 16 TK Bar. There are some seats in Jingshui Bar that are called high-priced seats, which are reserved intentionally by the bar owner. Once the bar is overcrowded, these high-priced seats become popular. If you want to get these high-priced seats, you must pay more. This can be regarded as a good marketing method. Of course, the money must be high. Although Mengder was smiling, he secretly felt a little pain. Following the bar waiter, he sat down directly. The surroundings were full of roaring music, as if burying the crowd. The 3 people ordered a few fruit plates, and then a few bottles of red wine. Qin Xuan saw it, and his heart was slightly warm. This thing was nothing in his eyes, but the novel was over 3,000. Even Mengder must have felt pain, but he still didn't take it to heart. Xuanzi, come, drink some wine. Mengder smiled, opened the red wine, and poured it for Qin Xuan. Li Mengmeng, who was standing next to him, had been frowning slightly since she came in. Especially after Mengder ordered, his brows knitted together. Yes, Qin Xuan, you broke up this time. Mengder has suffered a heavy loss, you must not live up to his kindness. Li Mengmeng said with a hint of sarcasm. Qin Xuan smiled, took a sip from the wine glass. Just then, several people walked by in the distance, led by a middle-aged man. The middle-aged man was about 30 years old, with shiny hair and a smug smile on his face, walking in a show of strength. When passing by, he also touched the buttocks of a woman next to him. The woman turned around, her face full of anger, but after seeing who was coming, her face changed slightly. She dared not speak. Xuan Zi, what are you looking at? Mengder followed his gaze, his expression slightly stagnant, and said, let's not mess with that man, he is the manager of TK Bar, his name is Chu Zi. Chu Zi. Qin Xuan raised his eyebrows and asked, even if he is the manager, no one cares. Mengder smiled bitterly and shook his head, who dares to care? You know Chu Mai, right? She is the woman of our city boss Missouri Yunlong. This Chu Zi is Chu Mai's younger brother, and can be regarded as Mo Yunlong's half-brother in lore. Who dares to care about him so desperately? Chu Mai's younger brother. Qin Xuan frowned slightly, he thought of the foxy woman. After the 3 of them drank and ate enough, Mengder and Li Mengmeng's faces began to turn slightly red. Immediately, Mengder and Li Mengmeng rushed into the dance floor and began to twist their bodies with the music. Li Mengmeng seemed elegant before, but unexpectedly she had more fun than Mengder. Mengder wanted to pull Qin Xuan to go with him, but was rejected by Qin Xuan. Mengder was still unwilling to give up, but was forcibly pulled in by Li Mengmeng. Qin Xuan sat quietly aside, his eyes were not on Mengder and Li Mengmeng, but on a woman in the bar. In front of the bar counter, a woman sat there, her proud figure attracted the attention of countless people. It was better to say that she seemed to have drunk a lot of wine, and her beautiful face was flushed, making her originally cold face a little charming. There were already many people around, who wanted to rush up and chat with her. Even in the TK bar, there were few women of this level. But soon, those who wanted to chat were all stopped, and the one who took action was the waiter of the TK bar. Some people were indignant, but under the finger of the bar waiter, all those who wanted to chat up were honest, because they all understood that they could not afford to offend the person who took action this time. In a place in the bar, Chu Zeti's eyes were shining, staring at the woman and laughing. Many people suddenly realized that Chu Zi had taken a fancy to this woman. How could they have the courage to compete with Chu Zi for a woman? As for Qin Xuan, of course he would not care about the woman's appearance and figure. He cared about the slight spiritual energy emanating from the woman's chest. Is it a spiritual crystal? Qin Xuan's eyes flashed with brilliance. Although it was only a low-grade spiritual crystal, it was absolutely important to him. A low-grade spiritual crystal was enough to double his cultivation. Even with this spiritual crystal, he could enter the stage of pure body and start formally practicing the eternal evergreen body. In the Qi refining realm, the eternal evergreen art is divided into 3 stages: gathering Qi, golden body, and magical power. Each step requires a large amount of spiritual energy, and the existence of spiritual crystals is also a necessary thing for cultivators in the cultivation world, which can increase the speed of cultivation. Finally, when the woman had almost finished drinking and was about to stand up and leave in a daze, Chu Zi took action. He used his eyes to slightly signal several waiters to stop the woman, and then walked over with big strides. "What are you doing?" The woman was shaking, her pupils were a little dilated, and she was obviously not in her right mind. "Madam, I think you seem to be drunk. Do you want me to take you home?" Chu Zi smiled and made an expression that he thought was kinder. The woman looked up at Chu Zi and waved her hand. No. No, I can go back by myself." She wanted to push Chu Zi away, but she had been drunk and weak, so how could she have any strength left? Chu Zi's eyes moved slightly, and 2 waitresses immediately supported the woman with a little sympathy on their faces. They all knew that this woman would definitely not escape Chu Zi's clutches tonight. It can only be blamed on her being too beautiful and being favored by Chu Zi. "You, get out of the way!" The woman shouted, and some people around her shook their heads slightly. Instead of stopping her, they all moved away and made way. That was Chu Zi, Mo Yunlong's brother-in-law. Anyone who dared to cause trouble for him was simply courting death. Mengde and Li Mengmeng were tired of playing at this time. They returned to Qin Xuan with sweat on their foreheads and looked in the direction Qin Xuan was looking. "Xuan Zi, don't be impulsive. We can't afford to offend Chu Zi," Mengde said hurriedly. He felt a little bad. It would be bad if Qin Xuan was impulsive. "Can't afford to offend." Qin Xuan shook his head slightly. He stood up slowly in Mengde's surprised eyes and strode towards Chu Zi. Chu Zi was very excited. He actually met such a top-notch person. It was really a great look. "Hey, Xuan Zi." Mengde's face suddenly changed and he stood up quickly. "Why do you care about him? He wants to die, and you want to die too." Li Mengmeng grabbed Mengde with disdain on her face. He doesn't know what kind of identity Chu Zi is. He wants to be a hero to save the beauty, but he doesn't even look at what he looks like. She drank some wine and said everything in one go. Besides, in this roaring music, she didn't think Qin Xuan could hear it even if she said it. "Are you going to let me watch him die?" Mengde turned around and shouted angrily. You dare to yell at me?" Li Mengmeng was stunned, her face full of surprise and anger. Mengde shook off Li Mengmeng's hand and ran over following Qin Xuan's figure. Chu Zi saw that good things were about to happen, and he couldn't wait, so he immediately signaled the 2 waitresses to carry the woman away. Suddenly, a voice came from not far away, making the crowd around quiet. "Let her go." With just 3 words, Chu Zi's face quickly darkened, and he turned around and looked around coldly. "Who the hell dares to interfere in my business? Do you want to die?" Chu Zi snorted coldly, and several burly men around him quickly gathered around him. Finally, Chu Zi's eyes stopped on Qin Xuan. He raised his head slightly and said arrogantly, "Little bastard, did you say that just now?" Qin Xuan glanced at Chu Zi lightly and said, "So what if it was?" As soon as the words came out, the people around immediately retreated, fearing that they would have any contact with Qin Xuan. Amid the roar of music, the same thought emerged in everyone's mind. Is this kid going to die? Chapter 17. Kneel down and admit your mistakes. "Xuan Zi, you are crazy." Mengde's first words when he came were almost roared. It can be seen that there were drops of sweat on Mengde's forehead as big as soybeans. This was completely frightened. He never thought that Qin Xuan would really dare to provoke Chu Zi. Who is Chu Zi? The manager of TK Bar, not to mention the omnipotence of Jingshui City, but with Mo Yunlong here, even the mayor-level figures have to give him some face. In the eyes of these high school students, such people are big bosses. They can be trampled underfoot with just one word, and they can't even turn over. Music, stop for me. Chu Ziyi yelled, and the music in the bar was silent in an instant. He looked at Qin Xuan and Mengder with a sneer, two little bastards, dare to ruin my good deeds. If I don't let you know what a lesson is today, how can I survive in the future? Manager Chu, Boss Chu. Chu Ziyi apologized in a row, I'm sorry, my friend is drunk, and I don't mean to offend you. Seeing that Chu Ziyi was still sneering and didn't mean to listen to his words, Mengder gritted his teeth and said directly, my father is Meng Kachang, I hope Boss Chu will not take the villain's fault and forgive my friend this time. Meng Kachang. Chu Ziyi smiled and said, is it that district chief Meng? Yes, yes. Mengder nodded quickly, feeling a little happy. It's Meng Kachang who came in person. Do you dare to let me give him this face? Chu Ziyi's face quickly became extremely gloomy. Several burly men behind him walked forward with overwhelming momentum, scaring many people pale. Who the hell are you? I'll give you face. If I don't break your legs today, I won't be called Chu Ziyi. Mengder almost cried in his heart. It was over. His parents did have some power in Jingshui, but compared with Chu Ziyi, they were nothing. Li Mengmeng in the crowd gnashed her teeth with hatred. Instead of standing up, she sneered. Stupid, now you finally understand what this Qin guy is, right? You dare to yell at me. Chu Ziyi waved his hand majestically, and several big men in black rushed over immediately. The people around him quickly retreated, and even some timid girls began to cover their eyes and scream. Mengder was so scared that his legs went weak and his face was extremely pale. Hey, brat, you can only blame yourself for offending someone you can't afford to offend. A sturdy man rushed directly to Qin Xuan, rubbing his hands. Suddenly, Qin Xuan moved, his expression was indifferent. Bang bang bang. With just a few movements, those sturdy men fell to the ground like dead dogs. This scene made everyone stunned, and they looked at Qin Xuan in disbelief. Fuck, this is a master. Someone was shocked. A teenager faced 4 or 5 burly sturdy men, and he knocked them all down in an instant. It was just like filming a martial arts drama. Mengder and Li Mengmeng were even more stunned, looking at Qin Xuan in disbelief. Is this still Qin Xuan? Chu Ziyi's expression was even more gloomy and terrifying at this moment, and a vein on his forehead bulged. These rubbish. Chu Ziyi kicked a sturdy man lying beside him, raised his head suddenly, and sneered, don't think you can be so reckless just because you have practiced a few tricks. Qin Xuan put his hands in his pockets and looked at Chu Ziyi quietly. Let her go. If you kneel down and kowtow 3 times to admit your mistake, I will let you go. His tone was very calm, as if he was talking about a trivial matter. But the people around him were in an uproar, and everyone looked at him as if he was a madman. Let Chu Ziyi kneel down and kowtow 3 times. Who does he think he is? This is too crazy, right? Even if he is a martial artist, what can he do? He can beat 4 or 5 by himself, but what about 40 or 50? Mengder reacted from the shock. He just thought there was a turn for the better, but when he heard Qin Xuan's words, he almost cried. Fuck you, you dare to let Chu Ziyi kneel down and apologize, do you think you are Mo Yunlong? Even so, Mengder still did not leave Qin Xuan's side, but was ready to be beaten. At worst, they would be beaten together. No matter how bold Chu Ziyi was, he would not dare to go too far. Har har har. Chu Ziyi raised his head and laughed, and then his expression became extremely angry in an instant. A 17 or 18-year-old kid actually asked him to kowtow and admit his mistakes. Has the world changed? This is simply a humiliation to him. Do you really think that you can be invincible just because you know a little bit of kung fu? Chu Ziyi almost squeezed out this sentence from his teeth. If I don't break your legs today and throw you into Mingxin Lake, I will not be surnamed Chu from now on. He slapped the bar next to him, making a muffled sound, and the wine glasses on it were shaking. The people around him were so scared that their faces turned pale. They knew that Chu Ziyi was really angry this time. Thump, thump, thump. From all over the TK bar, figures rushed out one after another, surrounding Qin Xuan and Mengder. There were more than 20 people, holding machetes and baseball bats. Come on, kill these 2 little bastards. Chu Ziyi roared, and everyone rushed over immediately. Qin Xuan, be careful. Mengde shouted. He picked up a chair and was about to fight shoulder to shoulder with Qin Xuan. It's okay. Qin Xuan even looked back leisurely and smiled faintly. Then, he glanced at Chu Ziyi and slowly uttered 4 words. Don't know whether to live or die. The next moment, his body rushed into the crowd like a phantom. Bang, bang, bang. For a moment, the chairs, bottles, cups and plates in the surrounding TK bar all shattered, making continuous sounds. With his current strength, it is easy for him to lift a barbell of 300 to 400 kilograms with one hand, so how could this group of ordinary mortals bear it? In the blink of an eye, the group of aggressive thugs fell to the ground one after another, wailing in pain. This time, the eyes of everyone around changed again. They stared at Qin Xuan as if they were looking at a monster. One person beat more than 20 people with weapons. Is he still a human? Even the city-level Sonder champion is not so fierce, right? Little bastard, you. Even Chu Ziyi's face changed. He found that he actually underestimated this kid. Even brother who might not be so good at fighting, right? Fuck, crap. Mengde had already prepared for the psychological preparation of injury and bleeding, but when he was about to take action, he found that all the enemies had been cleared. He could only express his inner shock and disbelief in 2 words. Li Mengmeng was even more stunned. She looked at Qin Xuan's thin figure, and the corners of her mouth twitched slightly. Qin Xuan put his hands in his pockets. Even the corners of his clothes were not damaged, and he was not stained with any alcohol. He looked at Chu Ziyi quietly. I gave you a chance, but you didn't cherish it. Qin Xuan sighed softly and slowly stepped towards Chu Ziyi. This time, Chu Ziyi was really scared. Little bastard, you dare to touch me. Tomorrow I will let your whole family come to collect the body. Chu Ziyi roared, but his body was retreating step by step. When Qin Xuan took a step forward, Chu Ziyi took 1 step or even 2 or 3 steps back, until he retreated to the bar, with no room to retreat. What's the matter? Such a big commotion. Suddenly, at the staircase on the 2nd floor of the bar, a voice with 3 parts of charm and 7 parts of anger sounded. Chu Ziyi seemed to see a savior and ran to the door in a panic. Sister. Everyone couldn't help but take a breath of cold air. Chumai, Mo Yunlong's woman, actually appeared in person. Chapter 18. Are you not convinced? Chumai wore a cheongsam, her jade-like skin was faintly visible, her figure was graceful and enchanting, she was a living beauty. But when she walked down the stairs, she had a cold face, which made her less charming and more cold. Chumai was extremely annoyed. She had been with Mo Yunlong for a whole day today. She finally took this opportunity to rest, but the TK bar made such a big noise again. Everyone in the bar held their breath at this moment, and their eyes all looked at the enchanting figure at the stairs. Chumai, Mo Yunlong's woman, is also the real boss of this TK bar. Usually, all the affairs of the TK bar are managed by Chumai. Once, a rich 2nd generation with a family property of hundreds of millions made trouble in the TK bar, and was broken his leg and thrown out by Chumai. Not only that, even the mayor had to give this woman some face when he saw her. Those 2 guys are finished now. Chumai can call hundreds of people with just 1 phone call. It's useless even if they are good at fighting. Chumai is actually in the bar. These 2 guys are really unlucky. If Chumai is not here, Chu Ziyi might have suffered the loss. Now that Chumai appears, those 2 guys will be defeated even if they have great abilities. The surrounding discussions are one after another, and the eyes looking at Qin Xuan and Mengde are even more sympathetic and pitying. Chumai and Chu Ziyi are completely different levels of people. Chumai represents Mo Yunlong's face. Once Chumai is injured, Mo Yunlong's anger will be spurned by few people in Jingshui. Sister. Chu Ziyi ran to Chumai in a panic and said, there are 2 guys making trouble here, and they are martial artists. Do you want to call Brother Long? What a bullshit call. Chumai said coldly, if you rely on Brother Long for everything, what use are you and me? Chumai's eyes swept across the scene. I want to see who is so brave that he dares to make trouble in my place. Chumai's voice stopped abruptly as she finished speaking, as if her neck was pinched. Her eyes were fixed on Qin Xuan, and her body even began to tremble. An emotion called fear filled her pupils. After calming down, Chumai looked back at Chu Ziyi and said, you are not talking about the 2 of them, are you? Chumai hoped that Chu Ziyi's answer was not these 2 words. That's right, sister, these 2 ignorant little bastards. Chu Ziyi sneered, they think they have some martial arts skills, so they dare to do whatever they want in our bar. Par. Before she finished her words, Chu Mai slapped him directly. Chu Mai almost used all her strength to slap him, and Chu Ziyi staggered. When Chu Ziyi turned around, he saw a shocking red and purple palm print on his left face. Chu Ziyi was stunned, and so were the others in the bar. Sister, why did you hit me? Chu Ziyi asked in disbelief, covering his face with a dull look. It's too late to hit you. At this moment, Chu Mai was about to cry in her heart. Who is Qin Xuan? In Qin Xuan's eyes, Mo Yunlong is just a dog, and as for herself, in Qin Xuan's eyes, I'm afraid she is not even a dog. How dare Chu Ziyi offend such a person? Once Qin Xuan gets angry, she will have to get out of Jingshui City with just one word. Mo Yunlong can dump her without saying anything with just one word. She is a woman. Without Mo Yunlong, she is nothing. Her fate is even more miserable than she imagined. Chu Mai almost ran to Qin Xuan. She almost stumbled and fell to the ground halfway. She didn't care at all. Qin, Mr. Qin, how come you have time to come to TK bar? Chu Mai swallowed her saliva, smiled charmingly, and almost stuck to Qin Xuan. Her towering breasts were half exposed, making countless men swallow their saliva. Qin Xuan glanced at Chu Mai coldly and said lightly, "Get out." With one word, Chu Mai hurriedly stepped back a few steps, feeling even more panic in her heart. Mr. Qin. The people around were stunned. They looked at Qin Xuan's childish appearance of 17 or 18 years old. Can he be called a gentleman like this? Funny, right? But when they saw Chu Mai's terrified face, they were immediately horrified. Chu Mai, is she afraid? Who is this young man? Chu Mai represents Mo Yunlong, the entire Jingshui. Is there anyone that Mo Yunlong dare not offend? Sister. Chu Ziyi looked like he had seen a ghost, and his face was full of disbelief. He had never seen Chu Mai so terrified. Even if Mo Yunlong was here in person, he probably wouldn't let Chu Mai show such an expression. Get over here. Chu Mai almost yelled, her body trembling, and she was extremely scared. She couldn't imagine what would happen to her after offending Qin Xuan. Chu Ziyi walked over carefully, and there was no trace of his previous majestic appearance. Kneel down. Chu Mai said coldly. Kneel down. Chu Ziyi suddenly raised his head and shouted in disbelief, Sister. If you don't want to die, kneel down. Chu Mai's voice was extremely cold, and her towering chest was trembling slightly because of anger and fear. Chu Ziyi gritted his teeth. A man's knees are made of gold. How could he kneel? But when he saw Chu Mai's expression, he felt panic in his heart. He knew that he might have really provoked some big shot this time. He had hit a wall. Bang! Under the eyes of everyone, Chu Ziyi's knees suddenly bent and fell to the ground. This kneeling made the whole TK bar dead silent. Everyone was stunned at this moment and couldn't believe this fact. Am I dreaming? Or is it hallucinations caused by drinking too much? A man slapped himself hard, and then realized that the scene in front of him was real. Chu Ziyi was actually kneeling to a boy who was only 17 or 18 years old. Meng De and Li Mengmeng were even more stunned. Chu Ziyi was kneeling to Qin Xuan. Wasn't Qin Xuan a poor boy? He was just a poor student with no power and living in someone else's house. Now, he could make a person like Chu Ziyi kneel. It's like an ant, and suddenly one day it turns out to be a tiger roaring in the mountains. Such a gap is simply a test of the heart's endurance. Qin Xuan glanced at Chu Ziyi lightly, and said slowly, I said before, as long as you kneel down and count out 3 times, I will spare you. Unfortunately, it's too late. Break his legs, I don't want to see him again. Qin Xuan's eyes suddenly became extremely deep, and he looked at Chu Mai quietly, Are you dissatisfied? Are you dissatisfied? For words, everyone's heart trembled suddenly. How arrogant and arrogant, even Chu Ziyi's previous prestige is compared to this young man's tyranny. It's just like a small witch meeting a big witch. Chu Mai was startled, she hesitated a little. No matter what, Chu Ziyi is her brother. But she was a smart person, she gritted her teeth and said, Mr. Qin, I know what to do. Qin Xuan nodded lightly, his eyes fell on the drunk woman who was already in a semi-comatose state, and he hugged the woman with one hand. A burst of fragrance rushed into his nose. This fragrance was different from ordinary perfume. It was body fragrance mixed with a hint of alcohol. Even Qin Xuan couldn't help but feel a little moved. Mengde, I'll go first. Thank you for your hospitality today. Qin Xuan turned back and smiled lightly, saying, by the way, this TK bar is mine. After the words fell, in the shocked and stunned eyes of everyone, Qin Xuan's figure disappeared at the door of the TK bar. As soon as Qin Xuan walked out of the door, a shrill scream came slowly, lingering in the night, and it lasted for a long time. Chapter 19 Soul Devouring Body Refining. After leaving the TK bar, Qin Xuan embraced the delicate body of a strange woman and stopped a taxi. Young man, you are so lucky. The driver glanced at the semi-conscious woman and laughed. Qin Xuan naturally did not answer and smiled faintly. The driver was bored and did not say much. In the car, the faint fragrance of the woman kept pouring into his nose, and her hands tightly wrapped around Qin Xuan's waist. The softness of her chest was even more tightly pressed against Qin Xuan's chest. If it were anyone else, they would have been ecstatic, but Qin Xuan couldn't help but frown. In his previous life, countless fairies and saints tried to touch his body, but now he was so close to a strange woman, which made Qin Xuan feel like he was being taken advantage of. He frowned and moved his body to keep a distance from the woman. Unexpectedly, the woman shrank slightly, and actually moved a little, hugging Qin Xuan tightly again. Do you really treat me as a pillow? Qin Xuan smiled dumbly, somewhat helpless. In the end, he could only let this woman take advantage of him for the sake of the spirit crystal. After arriving at the Pearl of Quiet Water, Qin Xuan slowly got out of the car, hugged the woman and walked directly into the villa and put her on the bed in a room. He took out the jade pendant on the woman's chest, held it with both hands, and carefully looked at the emerald green jade pendant. The jade pendant had no carvings, and it was emerald green all over. It flashed a dim luster under the light, like a goose egg. Qin Xuan couldn't help but feel fortunate that the spirit crystal was not carved, otherwise, a spirit crystal would probably be completely destroyed. He took the jade pendant and came to the living room, sat cross-legged and meditated, and placed the spirit crystal in front of him with his palm facing up. The eternal evergreen art was slightly activated, and the emerald green spirit crystal exuded a faint luster at this moment, and gradually floated in the air. The pure spiritual energy slowly overflowed from the spirit crystal and rushed into Qin Xuan's body. As the eternal evergreen technique was in operation, the spiritual energy traveled through Qin Xuan's meridians, and after a full cycle, it returned to the dantian. Qin Xuan's mind sank into the dantian. Every cycle, a stream of pure spiritual energy flowed into the spiritual sea, making the spiritual sea gradually grow. In the Qi refining realm, the spiritual sea can be 9 feet, and every 3 feet of the spiritual sea is a first grade. 9 feet is the peak of the upper grade and can condense the sea into a pill. In the world of cultivation, there are even more heaven-defying monsters who can condense a 10-foot spiritual sea. This realm is also called the Great Perfection, which means perfect foundation building. The spiritual sea is divided into many attributes, such as the most basic 5 elements, or higher-level spiritual attributes, such as wind, thunder, ice, and light. According to legend, there are also fairy attributes such as extreme yin and extreme yang, which have already involved the divine attributes of time and space in legends. Each attribute represents the talent of the cultivator, and the eternal evergreen technique cultivates the most basic wood attribute. Green is the color of the wood attribute. The spiritual sea in Qin Xuan's body was also like this. The green spiritual sea continued to expand. As time passed, the 1 zhang spiritual sea slowly rose to 2 zhang, and the green sea water was not rippled at all. Qin Xuan's eyes suddenly opened and closed. At this moment, there seemed to be a flash of green light in his eyes. The breath rushed out like a thread and gradually dissipated in the world. Sure enough, with the help of the spiritual crystal, cultivation is almost twice as effective with half the effort. Qin Xuan smiled lightly. He reached out to take the spiritual crystal in the air and looked at it carefully. The spiritual crystal, which was originally slightly shiny, was more thorough at this moment, and occasionally a touch of luster flashed. There was not much difference in appearance, but Qin Xuan knew very well that half of the spiritual energy in this spiritual crystal had been absorbed by him. Looking at the sky, it was already late at night. Qin Xuan took a deep breath and looked a little solemn. This time, he began to prepare to condense the eternal evergreen body. Humans are the leaders of all things. They can practice the laws of heaven and earth and understand the law of cause and effect. The only thing is that their bodies are extremely weak. The body is the object that carries itself. Buddhism compares the human body to the sea of suffering. The so-called Qi training is also the meaning of opening up the spiritual sea, escaping from the sea of suffering and reaching the other shore. After all, the human race itself has an innate disadvantage in terms of the body, and very few people are willing to give up the main thing and practice physical training. However, the eternal evergreen art is a dual cultivation of Dharma and body, and the eternal evergreen body is the most important part of the eternal evergreen art. The demon race has dragons and phoenixes, which can tear tigers and leopards apart at birth and eat pythons. They are the masters of all living things among the myriad races in the starry sky. There is also a strange race like the ancient race, where young children can lift 1,000 jinn tripod with their hands and crack a 10-foot stone with their feet, and they are gifted. The original meaning of the eternal evergreen body is to condense the body, comparable to dragons and phoenixes, and can fight the ancient race. Only when the body is indestructible can it be evergreen. The first gathering sea in the eternal evergreen art in the Qi refining realm implies the gathering of the spiritual sea and the blood sea. As for the place where the blood sea is located, it is located in the heart, the head of the 5 internal organs. After Qin Xuan made his decision, he concentrated his mind, opened his lips slightly, and a stream of emerald green air flew out of the spirit crystal and was swallowed directly into his stomach. Instantly, Qin Xuan felt as if there was a flame burning in his abdomen, and his whole body trembled slightly. The perseverance and pain required by a body cultivator are far beyond those of ordinary cultivators. A layer of fine sweat beads oozes out of Qin Xuan's body, gradually soaking his clothes. After a while, he is sweating profusely, as if he was drenched by a rainstorm. On his skin, veins bulge and mist rises. At the heart, drops of blood essence gradually condense. According to the operation of the eternal evergreen art, the blood in his body rushes into the heart. This process is extremely painful, but Qin Xuan's brows have never wrinkled from beginning to end. He looks normal, neither sad nor happy, as if he does not feel any pain. Until the sky turns white, Qin Xuan suddenly opens his eyes, and a gleam of light flashes from the bottom of his eyes. He stood up slowly. His body was already covered with a layer of sticky sweat and filth, which was caused by the spiritual energy. At his heart, a 10-foot sea of blood was slowly stirring, and the eternal evergreen body was finally condensed at this moment. With a smile, Qin Xuan punched suddenly. In the air was squeezed madly and exploded. The sound of the explosion was like thunder, lingering in the whole villa. Fortunately, the sound insulation of this villa is very good, and Qin Xuan is not worried about waking up the woman. With this punch, even a brown bear would be killed by him. This is just the initial practice of the eternal evergreen body. After practicing to the Mahayana stage, Qin Xuan can even fight the real dragon with the eternal evergreen body and suppress the sky phoenix with his fist. The benefits of the eternal evergreen body are not limited to this. Qin Xuan's fingers are like knives, gently sliding on the skin. A tiny cut appears on Qin Xuan's palm, and blood flows out. In Qin Xuan's eyes, the tiny cut was actually healing. Although it was very slow, it was more than 100 times faster than normal healing. In just a few minutes, the cut had disappeared without a trace. Finally it was condensed, but it's a pity that this spiritual crystal is useless. Qin Xuan sighed softly. The spiritual crystal in his hand had completely lost its spiritual energy and was no different from an ordinary stone. He went directly to the bathroom and took a good bath. Then he went out and changed his clothes. It was already bright outside. Qin Xuan looked at the time and was about to leave when suddenly a sharp cry resounded throughout the villa. Even the sound insulation of the still water pearl could not isolate this scream filled with fear, panic, shame and anger. Qin Xuan frowned and shook his head and sighed while holding the jade pendant. That woman woke up. Chapter 20 Su Yun Yu. Pushing the door open, the scream stopped abruptly. The woman on the bed was stunned, her shoulders exposed, her tender skin with a faint blush, her hair messy, and her originally slightly cold face was now filled with panic and fear. What did you do to me? Su Yun Yu almost shouted like crazy, her heart seemed to be twisted into a mess. She only vaguely remembered that she was drinking in the bar. How did she suddenly wake up and run into a strange room? The most important thing is that this is a man's room, and the man appeared alive in front of her. What did I do to you? Qin Xuan glanced at Su Yun Yu indifferently and said indifferently, You are the one who touched me all over. I have no interest in you at all. He threw the spiritual crystal that had lost its spiritual energy to Su Yun Yu and said, This is the price you paid for taking advantage of me. Now I give it back to you. After saying that, Qin Xuan turned around and left without paying attention to Su Yunyue's surprise and shame. I still have to go to school. Please do as you please. With a bang, the door of the room was closed tightly. Su Yunyu felt like she was going crazy. Not only did she appear in a stranger's room, but now, the boy who looked like he was 17 or 18 years old actually said that she was the one who took advantage of her. Su Yunyu hurriedly checked her clothes and breathed a sigh of relief. Immediately, her pretty face turned pink. Come back here. Su Yunyu almost yelled with gritted teeth, I touched you all over and took advantage of you. How can you say that? It's so shameless. The young masters who usually pursued her could be lined up as a reinforced company, but a stinky boy who hadn't even grown all his hair said that she took advantage of him. Su Yunyu was furious. The whole room was silent except for her angry panting. Su Yunyu took out her cell phone from her clothes, found a phone number, and called it directly. Hey, stinky girl, why don't you come over? I was almost sold. After hanging up the phone, Su Yunyue's heart gradually calmed down. She looked around and found that the place where she lived was obviously not ordinary. Through the window, she could see the green trees and the beautiful scenery of half of Mingxian Lake. This stinky boy, don't let me know who you are. Su Yunyu snorted coldly, secretly gritting her teeth. She came to Jingshui City to take refuge this time, but she didn't expect that such a big thing would happen as soon as she arrived. Fortunately, she was not taken away by someone with bad intentions, but by such a young boy whose hair had not yet grown out. Otherwise, she might regret it too late. After Qin Xuan returned to school, he was still the same as usual. Mengde behind him looked at Qin Xuan with a very strange look. For the whole morning, Mengde hesitated several times and did not open his mouth to ask. After Qin Xuan left last night, Chumai broke Chu Zedi's legs with her own hands. Not only that, she treated him like a guest of honor. Even if his father was in the TK bar, Chumai would not even pay attention to him. She actually bowed to him, making Mengde feel like he was in a dream. He finally understood what kind of person Qin Xuan, who he had always thought was powerless, was. He underestimated Qin Xuan, and even everyone in the whole high school underestimated Qin Xuan's identity and background. Such a person, even Lu Yunfan, the top young master of the high school, could only look up to him. In the following days, Mengde did not mention anything about the TK bar. As for Li Mengmeng, Qin Xuan did not see her even once in the past few days. After returning to the villa, the woman had disappeared. It seemed that everything had returned to calm, until the third day, when Qin Xuan called Mo Jingfeng. Mr. Qin. On the other end of the phone, Mo Jingfeng's tone was respectful. The skills have been completed, you can come to get it. Qin Xuan said lightly. Mo Jingfeng's voice stagnated, and then, his voice seemed to be filled with incomparable excitement and joy. Is what Mr. Qin said true? I will let Xiaoyi come now, no. I will come to get it myself. Mo Jingfeng hung up the phone in a hurry. A few minutes later, an Audi Q7 appeared downstairs of the Jingshui Pearl. Mo Jingfeng waited respectfully at the door of the villa with a trace of ore. Qin Xuan appeared and handed a diary to Mo Jingfeng casually. This Lingshui Ju, he modified it by borrowing the low-level cultivation method of Bihai Gong from the cultivation world, is even better than the original Lingshui Ju, and it is definitely a top-notch cultivation method in the world. Mo Jingfeng took out the diary, and his expression was a bit amusing. This is a cultivation method that the entire Mo family regards as a treasure, and this Mr. Qin actually used a diary to complete it. For a moment, Mo Jingfeng couldn't help but smile bitterly in his heart. Just as Qin Xuan was about to turn around, Mo Jingfeng's voice suddenly came. Mr. Qin. What's the matter? Qin Xuan paused slightly without turning his head. There happens to be a party today, Mr. Qin, do you have any interest? Mo Jingfeng said with a hint of awe. Gathering. It's just some families in Jingshui City gathering together. The main purpose of my coming to Jingshui City this time is because of a few magic weapons. Qin Xuan was slightly startled. When he mentioned magic weapons, he thought of the magic weapons in the cultivation world, such as flying swords that kill enemies thousands of miles away, and magic weapons that can spit water and fire. This aroused his interest and he slowly turned around. What kind of magic weapon? Mo Jingfeng hurriedly said, I don't know exactly what kind of magic weapon it is, but it is said that there is even a magic weapon made by Feng Shui Master Zhao Fuyan, which has the effect of gathering wealth and fortune, settling down and establishing a career. Okay. Qin Xuan nodded slightly, and got on the Audi Q7 under Mo Jingfen's respectful gaze. The venue for this gathering is Qingshui Villa, which is located in the beautiful scenery of Qingshui City. There are gurgling streams and ancient fragrance. Nowadays, there are few places as beautiful as this. When Qin Xuan, Mo Jingfen and others entered the Qingshui Villa, Mo Jingfen smiled and said, "Although this gathering is full of old guys, there are also some younger generations. It will take some time for the gathering to start. Mr. Qin, how about tasting it alone first?" Qin Xuan nodded slightly and said, "Yes." He walked to a corner, picked up a glass of red wine and sat calmly in the banquet. There were quite a few people in the party. Although there were not many noble families in Qingshui City, there were quite a few people gathered together from the old and young generations. As the saying goes, a family is a family that has been prosperous for 3 generations. These noble families are more unfathomable than the rich and powerful in the eyes of the world. The foundation of a family is far beyond what ordinary people can imagine. Even if it is the richest man in the world, in fact, it is not worth mentioning in the eyes of some ancient noble families. Every noble family is established by several generations of capable people. If there is a generation without successors, the family will probably decline and be eaten up by other noble families. Qin Xuan was tasting wine alone, sitting aside, his eyes calm and long, as if he was alone in the world, and didn't care about anything in the world. Qin Xuan. Suddenly, a slightly surprised voice came, attracting Qin Xuan's attention. He raised his head slightly, looked at the figure not far away, and his eyes were slightly rippled. Xiao Wu. Chapter 21. I don't understand Buddhism, but I know the sky. Xiao Wu was holding a Buddhist scripture, with a bit of surprise on her face. Tonight, she was wearing a white gauze dress, like a pure lotus. In this Qingshui Villa, she looked even more elegant and light. Besides Xiao Wu, there were a few people. Qin Xuan glanced and found that he actually knew them all. Lu Yunfan, He Yu, Wang Xiao. They were all students from the same high school as him. Especially when his eyes fell on Lu Yunfan, Qin Xuan's eyes showed a hint of coldness. In his previous life, he and Lu Yunfan were acquaintances. Lu Yunfan is Xiao Wu's biggest pursuer. Not only that, Lu Yunfan's background is amazingly deep, and he is also the biggest figure in the high school. It is said that even the principal has changed a person because of Lu Yunfan. No one knows Lu Yunfan's specific identity and background, but everyone knows that Lu Yunfan can definitely leave Wang Jiahao and others behind. And he has been madly pursuing Xiao Wu since the first year of high school. Everyone in the whole high school knows it. There were people who wanted to compete with Lu Yunfan, but they were forced to transfer the next day. Since then, Xiao Wu seems to have become Lu Yunfan's personal taboo. Although Xiao Wu has never paid attention to Lu Yunfan from beginning to end, Lu Yunfan just enjoys it. It was also in the previous life when Qin Xuan was in a state of loss of soul that he and Xiao Wu walked a little closer, often together, and were often warned by Lu Yunfan. He even asked someone to teach him a lesson many times, which made Qin Xuan dare not approach Xiao Wu later. Qin Xuan, why are you here? He Yu stared, surprised. This time, she came to play with Xiao Wu, but she didn't expect to meet Qin Xuan here. Xiao Wu walked over slowly, she slightly opened the Buddhist scriptures, and Mu Shui's note appeared in her little hand. Last time, you forgot to take it. Qin Xuan smiled faintly and ignored the note. You only have this Buddhist scripture. In the memory of the previous life, Xiao Wu seemed to have only held this Buddhist scripture from beginning to end, and never tired of reading it. Xiao Wu frowned slightly, and finally, she placed Mu Shui's note in the Buddhist scriptures and nodded gently, In the distance, Wang Xiao glanced at Lu Yunfan and whispered, "Isn't that Qin Xuan? How could he be related to Xiao Wu? I have never seen Xiao Wu take the initiative to find another man. Yunfan, you have to be careful." Lu Yunfan glanced at Qin Xuan lightly, and smiled indifferently. Do you think he is worthy of being my competitor? There was also a person next to him who laughed. Of course not, but no one can resist this boy's thick skin. He pursued Mu Shui for 2 years before, and now Mu Shui has transferred to another school. This boy may have set his sights on Xiao Wu. A gleam of light flashed in the depths of Lu Yunfan's eyes, and he said indifferently, "If he dares, I will let him know what regret is. I will give you the Buddhist scriptures tomorrow." Qin Xuan chuckled. When he was completing Ling Shui Ju for Mo Jingfeng, he also copied down the Buddhist scriptures. Although they were just the most common Buddhist scriptures, they even contain some low-level Buddhist cultivation techniques. If you study them for many years, you can even enter the Buddhist path. Cultivating Buddhism is different from cultivating Taoism. Buddhists pay more attention to the state of mind. As long as the state of mind is improved, cultivation will be a natural result. A woman like Xiao Wu is just right for cultivating Buddhism. This can be regarded as Qin Xuan's reward for Xiao Wu's actions in her previous life. If I am an enemy, I will repay my flaws. If I am kind to you, I will repay you. He Yu walked to Xiao Wu and happened to hear Qin Xuan's words. She couldn't help but sneered. Qin Xuan, are you talking big again? Do you know what Buddhism is? What Buddhist scriptures can you have? She was a little angry. She thought that after Mu Shuai transferred to another school, Qin Xuan would be able to turn over a new leaf, study hard, and work hard. Unexpectedly, Qin Xuan was still not doing his job properly as always, but began to entangle Xiao Wu. Buddhist scriptures. What a joke! She has known Qin Xuan for more than 2 years, living under the same roof, not to mention when Qin Xuan has read Buddhist scriptures, even the textbooks he has not turned over many times. Xiao Wu also chuckled. She did not think Qin Xuan had any Buddhist scriptures. However, the incident of Zhu Yongshuan left a deep impression on her, and she paid more attention to Qin Xuan. Xiao Wu glanced at He Yu, and a little surprise appeared in the depths of her eyes. She was kind and could see that He Yu did not know Qin Xuan's true ability. How simple could someone be who could make Jingshui boss Missouri Yunlong kowtow? Although Mo Yunlong was nothing in her eyes, he was definitely the leader of the local area in Jingshui. Qin Xuan glanced at He Yu and smiled lightly. Indeed, I don't understand Buddhism. In the past, the masters of the 3,000 pure lands in the fairy world had to respectfully call him the Green Emperor, so why should he understand Buddhism? He cultivated the great way of longevity and the way of eternal youth, which is the way of transformation from immortal to God, and is on par with the ancient gods. How can the mere Buddhist way be in the eyes of Qin Changqing, the Green Emperor? Buddha? What can it count as in the eyes of the Green Emperor? After hearing this, He Yu gently pulled Xiao Wu and sneered. Xiao Wu, don't pay attention to this guy. This guy is simply arrogant and wants to get a Buddhist scripture to please you. He doesn't know how valuable the Buddhist scripture in your hand is, nor does he know what the Buddhist scripture you yearn for is. Why do you have to get entangled with him? Xiao Yu. Xiao Wu smiled lightly, wanting to say something but stopping. She knew that He Yu was always proud and was Qin Xuan's sister. What's more, the fact that Qin Xuan was staying at her house was well known throughout the high school, and the relationship between the two was like fire and water, and everyone knew it. The affairs of this brother and sister were family affairs, so why should she say anything more? HMPH, you don't study hard, you just know how to please women all day long. Qin Xuan, you disappoint me so much. He Yu became more and more angry as he spoke, and in his heart he hated him for not fighting. Qin Xuan naturally would not argue with He Yu. Although He Yu always scolded him, he understood that He Yu was just a person with a sharp tongue but a soft heart. He took a sip of red wine, his expression calm. At this moment, his eyes were deep and distant, like the starry sky, with a majestic aura, looking down on all living things in the world. Even if I don't understand Buddhism, what can I do? In my eyes, Buddha is just a floating cloud. Why should I understand it? There are billions of Buddhas in the world, but they are not as good as me, Qin Xuan. I don't understand Buddhism, but I know the sky. How can the vastness of the sky be understood by Buddha? Qin Xuan smiled faintly. He looked at Xiao Wu. Why should I understand the Buddha in your eyes? After the words fell, Xiao Wu's eyes were dull, and He Yu was even more stunned. Until they reacted, Qin Xuan was still sitting there, with a faint smile, as if the momentum just now did not exist at all, and everything seemed like an illusion. You just know how to brag. He Yu's face flushed with anger, staring at Qin Xuan fiercely. Xiao Wu was silent for a while. She looked at Qin Xuan, wanting to refute, but didn't know how to refute. How can Buddha compare with heaven? Her heart was full of turbulent waves, and she became more curious about Qin Xuan. How could such words be said by an ordinary person? Qin Xuan smiled lightly. He raised his wine glass, took another sip of red wine, and looked indifferent. Compared with him, the Qing Emperor, hundreds of millions of Buddhas, what are they? Chapter 22. Please go out. Yunfan, haven't they been chatting for a long time? Wang Xia was a little indignant, especially when he looked at Qin Xuan with an even more unfriendly look. He was also a senior high school student, his family had a director-level background, and he had pursued Mu Shui before, but in the end, Qin Xuan, a poor boy, got her, which made him extremely annoyed. Although everyone knew that Mu Shui agreed because of a bet with Xiao Wu. But Wang Xiao was still full of hostility towards Qin Xuan, and he always disliked Qin Xuan. Lu Yunfan also frowned slightly. He strode over, smiling gently, Xiao Wu. Xiao Wu frowned without leaving a trace, turned his head and said lightly, "Is there something?" Lu Yunfan smiled lightly, glanced at Qin Xuan, and said, "Qin Xuan, how did you get into Qingshui Villa? Didn't you sneak in?" Xiao Wu and He Yu were stunned, and suddenly reacted. This gathering was a gathering of all the great families in Qingshui City. Even the rich and powerful were not qualified to enter Qingshui Villa. "Qin Xuan, how did you get in?" "Yes, Qin Xuan, how did you get in here?" He Yu was also very surprised. She came in with Xiao Wu, so she didn't notice this problem. Qingshui Villa was guarded very strictly. After all, there were big figures with extremely noble identities inside. If Qingshui Villa dared to relax a little and let outsiders break in and disturb the interest of these big figures, Qingshui Villa would probably be closed the next day. How did Qin Xuan get in alone? He had no power, and He Yu knew this even more clearly. Xiao Wu's eyes fell on Qin Xuan, and she couldn't help but be silent. She naturally didn't think that Qin Xuan got in by virtue of his identity. Even Mo Yunlong was not qualified to enter this gathering. She had seen Qin Xuan's skills in Zhuyangshuan. It was not a problem for Qin Xuan to enter Qingshui Villa with his skills. Could it be that he really sneaked in? Qin Xuan smiled faintly, and he didn't care about Lu Yunfan's questioning. "Someone invited me in." "Invite you?" Wang Xiao followed, as if he heard something ridiculous. "What are the identities of the people here?" "They are from aristocratic families. I heard that even the old man of the Mo family came to the party in person, which is enough to prove the importance and dignity of this party." "Someone invited Qin Xuan." "Any one of them here is enough for Qin Xuan to look up to." "Someone invited you, are you kidding?" "Do you know who are the people here?" Wang Xiao sneered, "Who do you think you are?" Lu Yunfan also shook his head slightly and smiled faintly, "Qin Xuan, if you sneaked in, I think you'd better get out quickly. We are all in the same high school. If you are thrown out, it will be embarrassing for us." He Yu also became nervous. Qin Xuan was at least her brother. If he was thrown out, she would be embarrassed. "Qin Xuan, how did you get in?" He Yu's face turned red with anxiety. "Don't tell me you really sneaked in." Qin Xuan glanced at Lu Yunfan indifferently, and didn't even pay attention to him. He picked up a glass of red wine and tasted it carefully. Le Pin, translated as Li Peng in Chinese, has a mellow taste. Compared with the world's largest red wine brand Romanée Conti, it is a little less noble, but it is rare in Qingshui City. Just one glass is estimated to cost tens of thousands. Seeing that Qin Xuan dared to ignore him, Lu Yunfan's face gradually darkened, and he said coldly, "Qin Xuan, don't refuse a toast. I'm reminding you with good intentions that there are some places you can't come to." Wang Xiao laughed and said, "Yunfan, you are just too kind-hearted. If it were me, I would have kicked him out long ago." Qin Xuan's eyes fell on Wang Xiao, and the two looked at each other. Suddenly, Wang Xiao felt his body tremble, and a piercing cold air entered his skin from all directions. He couldn't help but take a step back, and goosebumps appeared. You dare to stare at me." Wang Xiao was furious and shouted. Many people around also began to notice these movements. In a group of slightly older generations of aristocratic families in the distance, many people frowned slightly. "Old Lu, is this your grandson? It seems that he has a conflict with someone." A pale-haired old man smiled. In front of him, a half-white-haired, somewhat wealthy old man was the old man of the Jingshui Lu family, Lu Changding. Lu Changding smiled faintly. "You are young and full of energy, which is understandable. Back then, you and I didn't make a big fuss." Thinking of the past, Lu Shuahai couldn't help but sigh, "Yes, but now, I can't compare with you. The Lu family occupies most of the shares of the business group in Jingshui City. Now I can only retire at home." Lu Changding laughed dumbly and shook his head and said, "Old Lu, if Mayor Dong heard what you said, he would probably kneel down in front of you and slap himself. Your proud students are either local dignitaries or mayor-level and bureau-level figures. If we talk about fighting, it should be me who dares not." Lu Shuahai smiled and shook his head and said, "Let Xiao Zhang take a look." Qin Xuan still tasted the red wine calmly, and the expressions of He Yu, Lu Yunfan, Wang Xiao and others were uglier than each other. Suddenly, a figure walked quickly. "Manager Zhang." Wang Xiao's eyes lit up, and he turned to look at Qin Xuan, sneering. "Qin Xuan, I want to see how you were kicked out." A fine layer of cold sweat oozed out of Zhang Liang's forehead, and he hurriedly stepped forward and asked, "What happened?" He never thought that such an important gathering would cause trouble, and even the old men of the Lu and Lu families were alarmed. "I suspect he sneaked in." As soon as Zhang Liang arrived, Wang Xiao spoke immediately. "Wang Xiao." He Yu glared at Wang Xiao fiercely with some anger. She was not stupid, and she could see that Wang Xiao just wanted to tease Qin Xuan. No matter what, Qin Xuan was also her brother, and no matter how bad he was, she didn't want to be humiliated by outsiders. "Sneak in." Zhang Liang's face turned pale when he heard it. What did this gathering represent today? How could Zhang Liang not know that someone dared to sneak in? If this alarmed the big shots inside, he probably wouldn't be able to get a layer of skin peeled off. "How did you get in?" Zhang Liang's tone immediately rose several decibels, and he became more and more panicked. "Of course I walked in." Qin Xuan smiled faintly, still looking calm and indifferent. Zhang Liang paused, and the others looked at Qin Xuan with a madman's eyes. "Who didn't know that you walked in?" Even Xiao Wu couldn't help but smile, only He Yu was as anxious as an ant on a hot pot. "Xiao Wu, how about you help her?" He Yu whispered. Just as Xiao Wu was about to speak, another figure came from a distance. This figure didn't look at anyone at all, but the faces of the group of old people in the distance who were enough to dominate Jingshui city suddenly changed. Mo Yunyi. Mo Lao's close person. Mo Yunyi came over, walked straight to Qin Xuan, and whispered in his ear, "Mr. Qin, Mr. Mo invites you to come over." Qin Xuan then stood up, put the red wine glass on the table, and smiled faintly. He stood up calmly and walked out the door. Mo Yunyi followed Qin Xuan closely, not daring to be negligent. Har har, this kid was finally kicked out. Wang Xiao laughed a few times, his face full of pride, and he vented his anger. As for Lu Yunfan and others, they sneered. "This is the consequence of sneaking in, don't give me face." Lu Yunfan sneered, and the people around laughed. In their eyes, Qin Xuan was completely kicked out. He Yu's face turned pale, and he clenched his fists tightly. A surge of anger rose in his heart, and he disliked Qin Xuan even more. On the contrary, Zhang Liang's eyes trembled violently, and the whole person almost collapsed. "That's the Mo family. Mo Yunyi, this young man was actually invited by Mr. Mo." Lu Changang and Lu Shuahai in the distance were even more stunned, secretly guessing Qin Xuan's identity, and how could Mo Yunyi come to invite him personally? Could it be that he was Mr. Mo's honored guest? In the circle of the younger generation, only Xiao Wu shook her head and smiled, whispering in her heart, "The Mo family again." "Qin Xuan, what is your relationship with the Mo family?" She knew very well that Mo Yunlong was not qualified to participate, but the person who came today was thousands of times more noble than Mo Yunlong. The old man of the Lin Hai Mo family, Mo Jinfeng. Chapter 23 Broken Copper and Iron. Under the guidance of Mo Yunyi, Qin Xuan came to a house located halfway up the mountain in Qingshui Villa. This house is usually not open to outsiders, unless a very noble person comes in person. And today, it is obvious that this house has been prepared long ago. Walking into their house, Mo Jingfeng and Mo Qinglian were both there, and there was another person standing with his hands behind his back. This person seemed to be only in his 40s, with a bit of pride on his face. "Mr. Qin." Mo Jingfeng and Mo Qinglian stood up quickly. Qin Xuan nodded slightly, not caring, and sat next to Mo Jingfeng. "Mr. Qin, this is the disciple of Lin Hai Feng Shui Master Chan Fuyan, Li Wentao, Mr. Li." Mo Jingfeng then introduced the middle-aged man next to Qin Xuan with a pleasant face. Li Wentao glanced at Qin Xuan lightly, ignored him, and stood quietly aside with a somewhat arrogant attitude. Mo Jingfeng's expression froze, but he was not dissatisfied at all, and smiled. "Today's magic weapons are the work of Master Chen Fuyan, and each one is a fine product." Qin Xuan didn't even look at Li Wentao, and this attitude made Li Wentao secretly angry. Feng Shui masters have a very high status in China. Whether you are a prince or a high-ranking official, you cannot do without Feng Shui. Both the North and the South believe in Feng Shui. Feng Shui masters in the south mostly practice yin and yang, bagua, and five elements, while Feng Shui masters in the north mostly practice finding dragons, observing water, and acupuncture. Especially the noble families, they attach great importance to Feng Shui, which also makes Feng Shui masters have a high status. Even a disciple of a Feng Shui master is enough to be on par with a giant like Mo Jingfeng. Mo Jingfeng smiled awkwardly. He didn't want to offend Li Wentao, but he couldn't afford to offend Qin Xuan either. So he kept silent and stopped talking. Soon, a few people came in again from outside. The leader was thin, with a head full of white hair, and wrinkles on his face like gullies. Mo Qinglian came to Qin Xuan and whispered, "This is the old man of the Jingshui Wu family, Wu Xiong." The Wu family's influence spreads throughout Jingshui City, from small taxi companies to the 3 subways in Jingshui City and Jingshui Airport. Qin Xuan nodded slightly. When he followed his parents in his previous life, he had heard of the Wu family's reputation. The Jingshui Wu family, even in Linhai, should not be underestimated. It is the top family in Jingshui City, and even in other surrounding cities, there are Wu family. Soon, several more people walked in. Lu Shuahai and Lu Changgang, who were in the hall before, walked in side by side and nodded to Mo Jingfeng with a smile. When they saw Qin Xuan, they couldn't help but be shocked and secretly guessed Qin Xuan's identity. In this room, even Mo Qinglian could only stand, and that young man actually took a seat. These two are the old masters of the Lu and Lu families. The Lu family's influence spreads throughout Linhai. The Lu family is present in the power center of every province and city. Mo Qinglian continued to introduce, as for the Lu family is the one behind several of the top business giants in Jingshui City. Although they are not as rich as a country, their strong financial resources are enough to make the Lu family look down on others. Afterwards, several more people came, and Mo Qinglian still did not show any impatience, and carefully introduced them to Qin Xuan. "Har har har, all the old men in Jingshui City, long time no see." Outside the door, a clear and loud shout suddenly came, and then a figure appeared at the door with a vigorous step. This person has a clear and upright look, a majestic figure, and a momentum like a tiger descending from the mountain. As soon as he appeared, he attracted everyone's attention, and even Lu Changgang and others' faces sank. Zhu Qinghua from Senyuan City, the current head of the Senyuan Zhu family, how come he is here? Mo Qinglian's expression changed slightly, and she was very surprised. The Senyuan Zhu family is a family that can be compared with the Mo family, and it is even more of a giant in Linhai. The power of the Mo family is mainly concentrated in the military region and local chaebols. With Mo Jingfeng, a former general, the Mo family can be said to be as stable as Mount Tai. The Zhu family, however, is involved in the power veins of Linhai, and has a prosperous international trade business in recent years. Some people even predicted that within 10 years, the Zhu family will be able to shake the Mo family's position as the overlord of Linhai. Mo Jingfeng is worthy of being a hegemon-level figure. Even when facing Zhu Qinghua, he still looks normal. "Xiao Zhu, it seems that you were not invited to this party today," Mo Jingfeng said lightly. Li Wentao also smiled awkwardly and said quickly, "This time, it was Mr. Zhu who contacted my master Chen Fuyan in person. I didn't expect Mr. Zhu to come in person." Mo Jingfeng glanced at Li Wentao indifferently, but this glance made Li Wentao's face a little stiff. The rest of the Jingshui family understood that Zhu Qinghua's coming to Jingshui was not a good thing. For many years, the major families in Jingshui City have been on good terms with the Mo family. Zhu Qinghua's coming, the deep meaning contained in it was enough for them to think deeply. "I didn't inform Mr. Mo in advance when I came to Jingshui. Mr. Mo won't be offended, right?" Zhu Qinghua laughed. "Of course not." Mo Jingfeng smiled indifferently, his eyes paused slightly behind Zhu Qinghua, and a gleam of light flashed in his eyes. Zhu Qinghua only brought 2 people this time. One of these 2 people looked young, about the same age as Qin Xuan, only 17 or 18 years old. The other person quickly attracted the attention of the major families in the venue. This man was only over 30 years old, with a shaved head and layers of white cloth wrapped around his hands. When he walked into the room, he looked like a wolf, with a fierce look in his eyes and an extremely fierce aura. He dared to go deep into Jingshui City with only 2 people. It can be seen how confident Zhu Qinghua was in this bold man. Zhu Qinghua sat on one of the chairs as if no one was around, and said with a smile, I heard that Master Chen prepared a lot of magic tools today. It just so happened that I also wanted to buy one or two, so I hurried here. Please forgive me. He spoke politely, but sat there openly without any apology. Many people in the room had cold faces and stared at Zhu Qinghua with unfriendly eyes, but Zhu Qinghua didn't care at all. Mr. Li, the people are almost all here. It's time to take out Master Chen's magic tools for us to see, right? Zhu Qinghua's eyes fell on Li Wentao and smiled lightly. Good. Li Wentao immediately took out a treasure box from the house. The whole body of the treasure box was carved with jade. This treasure box alone was worth millions. This is the Azure Dragon Holding Pearl magic weapon refined by my master. It can swallow the wealth of the four seas and has the effect of gathering wealth. Li Wentao opened the treasure box, and one of the jade-like magic weapons appeared in front of everyone. In fact, this Azure Dragon Holding Pearl is made of metal, and it can be seen that the gold is refined into jade color. Everyone felt that their souls were about to be sucked into it, and they couldn't help but be horrified. It is worthy of being the work of Master Chen. Zhu Qinghua applauded, his eyes shining. I want this magic weapon. Li Wentao smiled faintly. He said, Mr. Zhu, why should you be so anxious? Master has other magic weapons that have not been revealed yet. It's not urgent to buy them when they are all taken out. Immediately, Li Wentao returned to the back again and took out the magic weapons one by one. There were 4 magic weapons in total. In addition to the first one, the Azure Dragon with Pearl, there was also a Bagua plate with a copper glow, a yin-yang jade pendant, and a golden toad carving. Each one was extremely extraordinary, with a shocking appearance, and a stream of secret power that could be clearly felt. Every magic weapon moved everyone in the venue. When these 4 magic weapons fell in front of everyone, many people's eyes turned red. This is the work of Master Chen Fuyan. If you can get one of them, you can guarantee the safety of the clan. It is a treasure of the world. Mo Jinfeng was also excited. As an internal force warrior, he could feel the extraordinary aura revealed in these magic weapons. He looked at it and finally looked back at Qin Xuan. Mr. Qin, what do you think of these magic weapons? Is there one you like? Mo Jinfeng invited Qin Xuan to come this time, with the original intention of choosing a magic weapon for Qin Xuan, so as to repay the favor of completing Ling Shui Ju. Qin Xuan looked at the 4 magic weapons, sighed slightly in his heart, and gave his evaluation with a bit of disappointment. Rubbish copper and rotten iron. Chapter 24 Leave nothing behind. Qin Xuan's voice was not loud, but it was clearly heard by everyone in the room. Rubbish copper and rotten iron. Li Wentao's face suddenly became gloomy. The things refined by his master have always been in great demand. Now someone actually commented that the magic tools refined by his master are rubbish and rotten iron. For a moment, everyone's eyes were focused on Qin Xuan. Har har har, Mr. Mo, who is this kid next to you? Could he be a junior of your Mo family? Zhu Qinghua laughed even more and said sarcastically, even Master Chen's magic tools dare to be called rubbish and rotten iron. I really admire him. Even the major families in Jingshui City who are on good terms with the Mo family couldn't help but shake their heads slightly. Chen Fuyan is a feng shui master in Linhai and enjoys a great reputation. Every magic tool he refines is in high demand. Mo Jinfeng's face was also a little ugly. With a bitter smile, he naturally didn't dare to say anything to Qin Xuan, and didn't care about Zhu Qinghua's ridicule. Qin Xuan sat in the same place, feeling more and more disappointed. He thought he could get some gains, but he didn't expect that they were all garbage. These 4 magic tools, at best, were just a little bit of formations, not as good as the lowest level magic tools in the cultivation world. It seems that Mr. Mo has extraordinary vision. I, Zhu Qinghua, naturally dare not compare with the Mo family. How about this? I want all these for magic tools. Zhu Qinghua laughed and looked at Li Wentao. Mr. Li, please make an offer. Compared with the wild words of some young boys, I naturally believe in Master Chen's magic tools. Qin Xuan glanced at Zhu Qinghua, feeling a little unhappy. He originally planned to point out the mystery of this so-called magic tool. Since Zhu Qinghua was willing to buy it, how could he stop him? What? You want them all? Many people were not happy. There were only 4 magic weapons this time, all of which were made by Chen Fuyan. Even if one weapon was not enough for each person, Zhu Qinghua actually wanted them all and left none for them. What? Do you want to compete with me? Zhu Qinggua's face gradually became gloomy, causing many people to look down. Zhu Qinghua, this is not Sen Yuan, it's not your turn to be presumptuous. Mo Yunyi took a step forward, his voice cold. Bang! With the same step, the bald man behind Zhu Qinghua took a step forward, and the momentum was like a wolf. Mo Yunyi's body trembled slightly, and he couldn't help but retreat, his face full of horror. Internal Force Warrior. Someone stood up and exclaimed. This bald man was only in his 30s, but he actually stepped into the ranks of Internal Force Warriors. No wonder Zhu Qinghua dared to be so unscrupulous. Xiaoyi. Mo Jingfeng raised his hand slightly, and in an instant, the pressure on Mo Yunyi disappeared. Zhu Qinghua, don't go too far. There are 4 magic weapons in total. You can take 1 or 2 of them. Mo Jingfeng was halfway through his words when a voice suddenly came. Since he wants it, just give it all to him. Qin Xuan smiled indifferently, it's just a pile of broken copper and rotten iron. If you believe me, give it all to him. Everyone was stunned again, especially Mo Jingfeng. He looked back at Qin Xuan, and his heart was slightly shocked. If it were someone else, Mo Jingfeng would not believe it. Chen Fuyan has been in Linhai for many years and is very famous. How could his magic weapon be broken copper and rotten iron? But these words were said by Qin Xuan, so Mo Jingfeng had to think carefully. Qin Xuan was the one who could heal his hidden injuries and even complete the Ling Shui Ju. Mo Jingfeng could only describe Qin Xuan in his own words. Unfathomable. No one knew how many jaw-dropping methods this seemingly ordinary boy actually had. Har har har. Zhu Qinghua laughed even more happily. He looked at Mo Jingfeng sarcastically. Old Mo, why don't you hurry up and say something to this young boy? Who knows, he might be a feng shui master who is stronger than Chen Fuyan. Many people around couldn't help but smile bitterly. Everyone could hear Zhu Qinggua's ridicule. Li Wentao's face became even gloomier, and he scolded, my master's divine power and the strength of his magic weapons are not something you, a mere teenager, can comment on. Even if you are old Mo's man, you can never tolerate such an insult to my master. Amid the laughter of the crowd, Mo Jingfeng took a deep breath and slowly raised his head. Zhu Qinghua, since you want these magic weapons, take them all. I, Mo Jingfeng, will not leave any. What? The whole room suddenly fell into silence, and even the major families in Jingshui were stunned. That kid is crazy. Is Mo Jingfeng crazy too? Actually believed that boy's nonsense, thinking that Master Chen's magic weapon is nothing but scraps of copper and iron. Even Mo Qinglian couldn't help but whispered, Grandpa. That's Chen Fuyan. Once today's events are spread, it will be equivalent to offending Chen Fuyan. The power of a feng shui master is much higher than imagined. As long as Chen Fuyan says a word, I don't know how many families are willing to work hard for a magic weapon. Mo Jingfeng sighed in his heart, and a flash of determination flashed in his eyes. How can a few magic weapons be compared with Ling Shui Ju? Magic weapons are good, but the skills are the foundation of a Mo family. Old Mo, I think you are really old. Zhu Qinggua's smile gradually faded, turning into a trace of indifference. You are so old that you can't tell right from wrong, black from white. How dare you? Mo Yunyi shouted, and Mo Qinglian was also furious. The surrounding families were also somewhat wavering. Although they were on good terms with the Mo family, the rise of Zhu Qinghua and the Zhu family was indispensable. Zhu Qinggua's words seemed to be mocking Mo Jingfeng, but in fact, they were also reminding them. Mo Jingfeng is old. Even if he was once glorious, he could not resist the invasion of time. Mo Jingfeng's 2 sons are good in military and financial aspects, but they alone can hardly support the entire Mo family. Li Wentao looked gloomy, glanced at Mo Jingfeng, and said coldly, I will report today's events to my master truthfully. He turned his head to look at Zhu Qinghua, his expression was slightly relieved, and said, these for magic tools, my master has priced them at 50 million in total. If Mr. Zhu wants them, you can take them. Okay. Zhu Qinghua laughed loudly, and he was in the limelight. He signaled the young man beside him to directly transfer the money to Li Wentao. A few minutes later, Li Wentao smiled. During the process, all the major families in Jingshui city fell into silence. If Mo Jingfeng did not fight for these for magic tools, they would not have the capital to fight Zhu Qinghua. Seeing these for magic weapons about to be taken away by Zhu Qinghua, many people frowned, and resentment towards Mo Jingfeng rose in their hearts. Chenna, go and put away the magic weapons, we will go back. Zhu Qingwa said loudly, slowly stood up, his face flushed. This time, he was in the limelight, and he also got for magic weapons made by Master Chen, which was a great harvest. The young man stepped forward and planned to put away the magic weapons. Suddenly, a faint voice came. Wait! Everyone looked over and saw Qin Xuan standing up with his hands in his pockets, with a faint smile on his face. Chapter 25. Nothing more. Why, kid, do you have anything to say? Zhu Qingwa sneered, are you regretting it? Qin Xuan's eyes were indifferent, and he took 2 steps forward. Don't you want to know why I say these are junk? I'll let you see it, so you don't have to pay people for it. If your elders knew about this, wouldn't they be so angry that they would crawl out of their coffins? Qin Xuan's words made Zhu Qingwa's face extremely gloomy. Boy, do you want to die? The young man was furious. If Zhu Qingwa hadn't stopped him, he would have rushed up and beat Qin Xuan. A cold light flashed in Zhu Qingwa's eyes. He was worthy of being a big boss in Lin Hai. He still kept his composure. Let you see it? Do you really think you are better than Master Chen? Zhu Qingwa's voice was slightly cold. You are not old, but you are very arrogant. You should be more careful in the future. The people around were also shocked and shook their heads. At Qin Xuan's age, how much can he know about feng shui? In their eyes, Qin Xuan was just angry and a child playing tricks. Li Wentao's expression was a little strange, and he felt a little uneasy. But he soon recovered and said confidently, how can a young boy like you compare with my master? I want to see how you can turn my master's magic weapon into scrap metal. Really? Qin Xuan smiled, stretched out his right hand, and suddenly pointed at the magic weapon called Qinglong Hanju. After he finished pointing, he sneered and said, look again. As soon as the words fell, everyone looked at it, and in an instant, everyone's expression became dull and surprised at this moment. What? How is this possible? Before, I felt that this magic weapon had a dizzying ability, how come it suddenly disappeared? That young man just pointed like this, how could it be impossible to destroy a magic weapon? Could it be that what he said was true? The whole audience was in an uproar, even Mo Jingfeng and Zhu Qingwa were stunned, looking at this magic weapon in disbelief. This? How is this possible? Li Wentao could no longer stay still, and shouted in disbelief, Stinky boy, what on earth did you do? Qin Xuan smiled coldly, and said, this magic weapon is originally a mortal object, with a bright and beautiful appearance, and it is deliberately mysterious with a little formation. Such a piece of garbage, a piece of broken copper and iron, dares to say that it gathers wealth from all over the world. Li Wentao, what's going on? Zhu Qingwa's face was gloomy for a moment, and water was about to drip out. Is this Master Chen's magic weapon? He really treats the world as fools. The people present are all from major families, and they know a little about feng shui. After Qin Xuan's reminder, they suddenly understood. Li Wentao's face was sweating coldly. He dared to tease the Jingshui family, and even old Master Mo and Zhu Qingwa. Even if he had 10 lives, it would not be enough for others to kill him. Damn you, you ruined my plan. Li Wentao's eyes suddenly fell on Qin Xuan, and a fierce murderous intent burst out of his eyes. If it weren't for Qin Xuan, how could the trick inside the magic weapon be easily discovered? He was extremely resentful that a young boy had ruined his plan. I'll show you what the real feng shui technique is. Li Wentao shouted, and suddenly his sleeves bulged, his face as cold as ice. He shook his hands, and a thunderous sound was heard in the air. Many disciples of the aristocratic families around were all panicked and confused, and even Zhu Jinghu couldn't help but take a step back and let the bald man stand in front of him. In the air, a lightning flash as thick as a finger appeared out of thin air. Is this feng shui killing technique? Mo Jingfeng stood up suddenly and shouted, Li Wentao, do you dare to do it? The disciples of the noble families around were even more terrified. Human power could actually cast thunder. This was just like a magic in the legend. Most of them were ordinary people. How could they not be terrified? Boy, you ruined my good deeds, go to hell. Li Wentao's arm trembled, and the lightning in the air rushed towards Qin Xuan. Qin Xuan put his hands in his pockets, calm and composed, as if he didn't see the thunder, which made many people scream. Be careful. Mo Qinglian was so scared that his face turned pale. Ordinary people would definitely die if they were hit by this thunder. When the thunder fell on Qin Xuan, a burst of electric arcs lingered on Qin Xuan's body, but Qin Xuan didn't care at all. Everything was silent, and everyone's eyes fell on Qin Xuan, and they couldn't help but be shocked. Is he dead? In front of everyone, Qin Xuan withstood the thunder and suddenly smiled faintly. How dare you, a mere Taoist, perform in front of me? This kind of thunder is nothing in front of the eternal evergreen body. There was an uproar all around. Someone could withstand the thunder with his body. Is he still a human? In the eyes of everyone, Qin Xuan stretched out his right hand with an indifferent expression. This feng shui technique is just like this. Today I will let you see what the real Taoist technique is. After the words fell, a blazing purple light appeared between Qin Xuan's palms. Rays of lightning came out from his 5 fingers and palms. He suddenly pinched a strange spell with his right hand. All the thunder rushed out into the air, twisting and merging. It turned into a thunder dragon as thick as an arm, lifelike. I have a trick that can control thunder and turn it into a dragon. In Li Wentao's horrified eyes, the thunder dragon let out a dragon roar and rushed straight towards Li Wentao. Li Wentao's so-called feng shui technique was easily crushed and vanished in front of the thunder dragon. The thunder dragon landed in front of Li Wentao and suddenly stopped. Li Wentao was already scared out of his wits. At the moment the thunder dragon descended, he thought he was dead. Accompanied by Qin Xuan's faint smile, the extremely terrifying thunder dragon actually spread around. In the stunned eyes of everyone, Qin Xuan stood with his hands behind his back, like an emperor, with a sense of looking down on the world from him, as if all living beings were just a group of ants to him. The whole room was dead silent, and Li Wentao sat on the ground with his buttocks, looking at the arrogant figure in a daze. Qin Xuan smiled indifferently and looked down at Li Wentao. I broke your feng shui, are you dissatisfied? Li Wentao ignored everything and quickly got up and knelt on the ground. Of course I am convinced, I am convinced, I am convinced. Li Wentao knelt on the ground, frightened. How dare he disobey? Qin Xuan took a step forward and said lightly, Today I said these magic tools are broken copper and rotten iron, are you dissatisfied? I am convinced, these magic tools are broken copper and rotten iron. Li Wentao beat his head like garlic, just to save his life. Today I let you kneel on the ground and kowtow to see blood, are you dissatisfied? Qin Xuan took another step forward, his eyes were like torches. I am convinced, sir, you are so powerful, I will never dare to disobey you in the future. Li Wentao was about to cry, he could feel Qin Xuan's eyes, these 2 eyes were like a mountain, pressing him to the point of suffocation. Qin Xuan flicked his sleeves slightly and said calmly, I said your feng shui is just like this, are you convinced? I'm convinced, I'm convinced. Li Wentao seemed to be crazy, and there was a large amount of blood on the ground, but he didn't seem to feel any pain. Qin Xuan immediately glanced at Zhu Qinghua and the bald man, and they were immediately terrified. Even if it was them, what could they do under such a godlike method? Controlling thunder to become a dragon, how terrifying is this? It's just like the gods in the legend, and mortals can only look up to them. Qin Xuan turned around and returned to his original seat under the attention of everyone. This time, everyone's expressions were consistent. Whether it was the disciples of the aristocratic family or the old man of the family, they all had the same expression on their faces when facing Qin Xuan. As if worshipping a god.